310 million years ago, the world's forests were not quiet places. Dense, dark swamps stretched for thousands of kilometers, choked with towering clubmoss trees and giant ferns, their roots sinking into black, waterlogged soil. Over the murky pools, dragonflies with wingspans close to a meter beat the heavy air, hunting with sudden, precise dives. Below the canopy, centipede-like crawlers, as long as a small car slid between roots, their armored segments scraping against the wet ground. This was not science fiction. This was Earth during the late Carboniferous period, many millions of years ago, when simply breathing the air gave certain animals an extraordinary advantage. For tens of millions of years, the planet's atmosphere was radically different from today. Oxygen levels climbed to around 30 to 35%, far higher than the roughly 21% that supports life in the modern world. That invisible change turned ordinary insects and other arthropods into giant, sometimes deadly versions of themselves. In this ancient environment, the air itself played an important role as a kind of hidden engine. Arthropods do not breathe with lungs. Instead, they rely on a network of tiny tubes that carry oxygen directly into their bodies. With more oxygen in the atmosphere, those tubes could deliver more gas, more efficiently, into larger bodies. Scientists have found fossils of dragonfly-like insects called meganeura, with wings wide enough to match a modern eagle, and delicate wing veins preserved like lace in stone. Evidence showing that these animals were common hunters suggests that the swamp skies were crowded with powerful aerial predators. The contrast with the present is striking. Modern dragonflies are light, fragile hunters, often no bigger than a human thumb, gliding over ponds and quiet rivers. In the Carboniferous swamps, meganeura filled the same role but at a terrifying scale, with long spiny legs to grab prey and strong mandibles to tear it apart. On the forest floor, today's small harmless millipedes are replaced by Arthropleura, one of the most impressive arthropods ever discovered, stretching up to 2 meters in length. Its jointed armor plates formed a living shield, and its broad body could have brushed a human shoulder as it passed. What turned these animals into monsters, and why did the same air that supported them later cut them back down to size? Scientists have uncovered evidence linking these changes to strange forests that locked away carbon, to the slow creation of vast coal beds, and to atmospheres that shifted from life-giving to suffocating. At the same time, new vertebrate predators with strong skeletons and sharp teeth began to invade the skies and swamps, challenging the dominance of giant insects. This documentary investigates each of these star creatures like dangerous prehistoric case studies, just as with powerful dinosaurs. Their names, their environments, their bodies and weapons, and finally their downfall will be explored, to reveal how changing air once built a world of monsters, and how a changing atmosphere might reshape life again. To understand these ancient monsters, the air itself must be treated as one of the most dangerous forces in the story. During the late Carboniferous, many millions of years ago, the atmosphere over the coal swamps was not the same thin mix that fills lungs today. Oxygen levels climbed to around 30 to 35%, far higher than the 21% measured in the modern atmosphere, while carbon dioxide stayed lower than in many other ancient greenhouse worlds. This difference might sound small, but inside an animal's body, it changed everything. With more oxygen in every breath, blood or body fluids could carry far more chemical energy to working tissues. Muscles could contract harder and recover faster. Nerves could fire rapidly without exhausting their supply. At the same time, the lower carbon dioxide levels altered global climate and plant growth, helping build dense forests that fed this oxygen engine. The entire environment became a vast biological furnace, flooded with a gas that both sustained and threatened life. Oxygen in this world was not just a life giver, it was a limit breaker and a silent weapon. Higher concentrations meant that every inhalation delivered a powerful boost, allowing bodies to grow larger, while still keeping enough energy flowing to distant tissues. But there was a cost. Air so rich in oxygen made the land far more flammable. Forests could ignite more easily, and fires burned hotter and faster. Scientists have found evidence showing that ancient charcoal layers are widespread in Carboniferous rocks, suggesting that giant wildfires played an important role in shaping these ecosystems. For arthropods, this supercharged atmosphere was especially important. Instead of lungs, insects and many of their relatives breathe through a tracheal system. Tiny openings in the exoskeleton lead into branching tubes that spread through the body. Oxygen does not ride on red blood cells. It diffuses directly through these tubes, moving from high concentration outside to lower concentration inside. Under modern oxygen levels, diffusion alone struggles to push enough gas deep into a very large body. Beyond a certain size, the inner tissues would simply suffocate. In Carboniferous air, that ceiling moved. With a 30 to 35% oxygen outside, diffusion became far more effective. The same simple tubes could feed much larger volumes of muscle and organ tissue. Imagine a world where breathing the local air determined body size in the same way that food or genes do. If a human body followed the same rules, ordinary modern air would keep it relatively small, but stepping into Carboniferous air would be like entering a natural growth chamber, allowing a leap to professional basketball height or beyond without special training. This invisible atmospheric advantage turned arthropods into giants. It helped stretch dragonfly relatives into wide-winged aerial hunters and allowed millipede kin to reach lengths measured in meters. In the next section, these creatures will appear as case studies, showing how superoxygenated air armed them with powerful new abilities, and how a long, slow collapse in oxygen later cut these towering forms back down to size. Among these giants of the insect world, one predator stands out like a flying tyrannosaurus of the Carboniferous skies. This was Meganeura, a dragonfly-like hunter so large that its wings could rival the width of an eagle's. In ancient forests filled with towering club moss trees and dense humid air, it was one of the most fearsome aerial killers the planet has ever produced. Meganeura lived more than 300 million years ago, in the late Carboniferous period. That is tens of millions of years before the first dinosaurs appeared, and unimaginably long before humans. For millions of years, while no vertebrate had yet taken to the air, this insect ruled the canopy and the open spaces above the swamps, turning the superoxygenated atmosphere into a personal hunting ground. Its size alone is difficult to picture. The wingspan of Meganeura could reach around 65 to 70 centimeters, stretching wider than a human arm from shoulder to wrist, and approaching the spread of a modern eagle's wings. Each wing was long, narrow, and edged with strong supporting veins, forming a stiff but lightweight surface that could slice through the thick, warm air. In flight, this would have created a powerful, fluttering shadow over the forest floor. The name Meganeura comes from Greek roots that mean large veins, a direct reference to the striking pattern of lines that covered its wings. These veins formed a vast, lattice-like network, carrying air and strengthening the wing like the ribs of a vaulted ceiling. The name captures its most visible feature: enormous panes of living glass, crisscrossed by dark struts, perfectly adapted for strong, controlled flight in an environment rich in oxygen. Fossils of Meganeura are among the most dramatic insect remains ever found. In fine-grained rocks, the impressions of those wings appear almost like pressed leaves, every vein preserved in remarkable detail. Scientists have used these fossils to reconstruct not only the animal's shape, but also its possible flight style, comparing the wing patterns to modern dragonflies, damselflies, and other agile flyers. There is evidence showing that these ancient hunters could have been fast, maneuverable, and capable of sudden bursts of acceleration. Yet even with this detailed evidence, researchers still debate how such a large insect could truly fly and hunt. Did the thick air and high oxygen allow its tracheal system to deliver enough gas to every part of the body? Did its muscles work more like those of modern dragonflies? Or was there something different about its internal design that played an important role in supporting such size? These questions keep Meganeura at the center of discussions about atmospheric change and animal limits. In this documentary, Meganeura will be treated like a dinosaur apex predator. Its environment, body design, and weapon anatomy will be examined as carefully as the skull and teeth of a giant theropod. How did its spiny legs grip prey? How did those wide wings turn air into a weapon? By studying this insect raptor of the ancient skies, scientists can begin to understand how the atmosphere itself helped forge a skyborne killer, and why such giants eventually disappeared. To understand this insect raptor, the story must move back into its kingdom. Many millions of years ago, in the late Carboniferous period around 305 to 299 million years ago, the land that is now parts of Europe lay close to the equator. The continents were fused into the growing supercontinent Pangaea, and along its tropical belt spread endless swamp forests, dark, humid, and heavy with oxygen-rich air. These forests did not look like modern woodlands. Towering club moss trees, some over 30 meters tall, rose on thick scaly trunks, their roots tangled in waterlogged ground. Between them, giant horsetails formed dense stands, while thick mats of ferns covered every open space. The air was warm and wet, and frequent storms rolled across the lowlands, pounding the swamps with heavy rain. Mist clung to the forest floor, turning the understory into a dim, green tunnel, where light filtered down in narrow shafts. The ground itself was unstable. Fallen trunks lay half-rotten in black water, and every step would have sunk into peat and tangled roots. Pools and slow channels connected into wide, sluggish rivers. In this environment, the line between land and water was blurred, creating countless hiding places and hunting routes. It was here, above this flooded maze, that Meganeura ruled the air. Beneath its patrol routes, life was abundant and restless. Smaller insects with delicate wings flickered between the ferns, forming clouds of potential prey. Early amphibians, some the size of large salamanders and others approaching crocodile length, lurked in the shallows, waiting to snap at passing creatures. Primitive reptiles with stronger limbs and tougher skin explored the slightly drier patches of ground, testing a new way of life away from permanent water. Freshwater fish moved through the dark channels, and along the forest floor crawled other arthropods, including millipede relatives that could reach the length of a human adult. This mixture of insects, amphibians, reptiles, and aquatic animals formed a complex food web. Each level depended on the dense plant growth and the wet, warm climate that fed it. In this web, Meganeura was one of the most important aerial hunters. In a world with no birds and no bats, Meganeura filled the role of top sky predator. Its long, strong wings carried it over the canopy and down into the forest corridors, where it could ambush other insects in mid-flight. Scientists have evidence showing that its spiny legs were well suited to snatching and gripping prey. Some researchers suggest it may even have attacked very small amphibians at the water's edge, just as modern dragonflies sometimes seize tadpoles or tiny vertebrates. Here, the atmosphere itself played an important role. Oxygen levels were far higher than today, reaching around 30% or more. And this dense, rich air helped power Meganeura's flight and allowed its body to grow to an impressive size. But there was a hidden danger. The same oxygen that strengthened wings also turned the forests into vast fuel. During dry spells, a single lightning strike could ignite the peat and trees, sending wildfires racing through the swamp canopy. This was a sky of opportunity and risk. Every glide through the heavy air brought food, but the entire forest could become a burning trap without warning. In the next section, the focus will turn to how this supercharged atmosphere shaped insect bodies from the inside, and why such giants could not keep their hold on the skies forever. In that charged, smoky air, one hunter dominated the skies above the swamps. This was Meganeura. a dragonfly-like predator so large that its very shadow could startle animals moving along the forest floor. In human terms, its scale was striking. The body alone stretched about as long as a human forearm, while its wings reached wider than a person's shoulders. Seen drifting over a stand of club moss trees, it would have been one of the most visually imposing insects ever to fly, far beyond the size of any dragonfly living in the world today. To smaller arthropods, it must have seemed like a silent aerial reptile rather than an insect. The basic body plan of Meganeura was simple but highly specialized. Behind the wings, a long segmented abdomen extended like a balancing tail, acting as a stabilizing rod during flight and helping control pitch and angle. At the center sat a robust thorax, its internal space packed with powerful flight muscles anchored to the wing bases. At the front, a relatively large head carried strong mouth parts and was dominated by two massive compound eyes that wrapped around the sides, giving a wide field of view across the sky and forest below. The wings of Meganeura were its most important tools. It carried two pairs of long membranous wings, each reinforced with a dense framework of veins. These veins provided both rigidity and flexibility, preventing the wings from collapsing, while still allowing subtle twists during each stroke. Evidence showing that modern dragonflies can hover, dart sideways, and suddenly reverse direction gives a guide to what Meganeura could do. In the thick carboniferous air, such agile flight would have allowed it to hang motionless in ambush, then launch rapid, precise strikes at fast-moving prey. Its sensory and grasping equipment completed the design. The enormous compound eyes likely granted near 360-degree vision, turning almost any movement into a visible signal. Below them, the front pair of legs was armed with spines and shaped like raptorial cages. As prey insects crossed its path, these forelegs could snap shut in mid-air, forming a living trap that funneled struggling victims straight toward the waiting mouthparts and sharp, cutting edges of the jaws, which functioned almost like tiny teeth. All of these features were tied to the ancient atmosphere. Scientists have long linked the lightweight exoskeleton of insects with high oxygen levels, and Meganeura is a prime example. The carboniferous air, rich in oxygen, played an important role in powering its large flight muscles and supplying its body through a network of air tubes without heavy lungs or thick bones. Eyes, wings, legs, and muscles worked together as a single hunting system, turning this insect into the undisputed master of the carboniferous sky. But how could such a delicate breathing system support giants like this for many millions of years? And why did that hidden advantage finally fail? For many millions of years, that hidden advantage in the air did more than keep Meganeura aloft. It turned this insect into a flying weapon. In a world of dense forests and thick, oxygen-rich atmosphere, its body was not just built for flight, it was engineered for attack. The head of Meganeura was one of the most important parts of this design. Large, mobile, and bristling with sensory power, it ended in a pair of strong, toothed mandibles. These jaws were hinged for rapid opening and closing, working almost like a set of shears scaled down to insect size. Instead of flat chewing plates, the edges carried tooth-like ridges that could slice through the soft bodies of other insects and crush delicate bones in small vertebrates. With each snap, the mandibles could pierce, tear, and grind, turning struggling prey into pieces it could swallow quickly in midair. Scientists have compared these mouthparts to a combination of scissors and pliers. The front of the head gripped and cut, while supporting structures behind the jaws helped transfer powerful forces from the muscles in the skull. In the carboniferous environment, where many animals had thin armor and soft tissues, such a tool was devastating. A single bite could sever wings, cut through leg joints, or crush the body of a smaller insect outright. But the jaws were only the final stage of the attack. The forelegs of Meganeura played an important role in capturing prey before it ever reached the mouth. Each front leg was lined with sharp spines, arranged along the segments like rows of barbs. When the insect struck, These legs snap together under the head, forming a spiky cage in the air. Any animal caught inside would be pinned, its wings tangled and body pressed against those spines, then slowly funneled upward toward the waiting mandibles. This leg cage system turned flight into a delivery mechanism for the bite. The wings drove Meganeura forward, the spined forelegs locked around the target, and the head pivoted down to begin feeding while both hunter and victim were still moving. Scientists have found evidence showing that modern dragonflies use a nearly identical method, suggesting that this deadly combination of legs and jaws has deep evolutionary roots. Hidden inside the thorax, powerful indirect flight muscles completed the weapon system. Fossils do not preserve these soft tissues, but the size and shape of the wing bases, combined with modern analogs, indicate that Meganeura had thick muscle blocks attached to the inner skeleton. By flexing the thorax rather than the wings directly, these muscles could generate rapid wing beats and explosive acceleration. In a dense, oxygen-rich atmosphere, such muscles would have been supplied efficiently, supporting sudden bursts of speed ideal for surprise attacks. Put together, this anatomy translates into a clear hunting sequence. Meganeura scans the forest edge with its huge compound eyes, detecting the faint movement of another insect far away. It tilts its wings and accelerates silently, closing the distance in seconds. At the last moment, the spined forelegs shoot forward and snap shut, trapping the victim in a living cage. Still in flight, the head drops, mandibles open wide, and the toothed edges bite again and again, tearing the prey apart while fragments fall toward the swamp below. In this role, Meganeura was one of the most formidable insect predators in Earth's history. Its jaws, legs, and flight muscles formed a single integrated killing system, perfectly matched to the ancient atmosphere that powered it. Yet this dominance depended on that same atmospheric advantage, an invisible support that would begin to weaken as the planet changed. What happened when the air itself turned against giants like this? When the air began to shift against these giants, the most important clues to their former power were locked away in stone. In ancient lake beds and swamp deposits, fine layers of mud slowly buried the dead bodies of insects that fell into the water. Over millions of years, pressure turned that mud into rock, preserving flattened impressions of wings and bodies that still outline one of the most formidable sky hunters of the Carboniferous, Meganeura. The main Meganeura fossils are not three-dimensional bodies, but delicate silhouettes pressed into fine-grained shale. These impressions show long, narrow wings spread out like a shadow, with intricate networks of veins etched into the rock. In many specimens, the head, thorax, and abdomen are visible as faint shapes, giving a clear sense of overall size and proportions. The quiet waters of ancient ponds and swampy pools played an important role in this process, allowing the insect to settle gently on the bottom before it was quickly covered and sealed away from decay. For scientists, the wings are the most revealing structures. Their length, shape, and vein patterns provide evidence showing that Meganeura was built for strong, sustained flight. The leading edges are reinforced, and the veins are arranged in a way that stiffened the wing while still allowing subtle flex. When these features are compared with the wings of modern dragonflies, the similarities suggest an animal capable of rapid acceleration, fast turns, and long patrols over open water or forest clearings. This was not a weak glider drifting on the wind. It was an active flyer, able to chase, overtake, and seize prey in midair. Modern dragonflies offer one of the most important living analogs for this behavior. Even today, these insects are among the most efficient aerial predators known, with some species achieving near-perfect success during hunting bursts. They track targets with large, multifaceted eyes, adjust their four wings independently, and use spiny legs to form a cage that snaps shut around smaller insects. Scientists have used high-speed cameras to show how precise and deadly these attacks can be. Scaling that system up, in an environment rich in oxygen, likely amplified every predatory trait. Direct evidence of Meganeura's meals is still missing. No fossil has yet revealed gut contents packed with specific prey, and there are no preserved bite marks on small amphibian bones that can be tied with certainty to its jaws. Even so, the combination of strong mouthparts, huge compound eyes, and powerful wings, together with a carboniferous sky almost empty of competing flying vertebrates, strongly supports its role as a top insect predator. In its world, smaller arthropods and delicate early vertebrates would have been largely unprotected from such an attack. Imagining the carboniferous swamp forests through this lens changes the scene completely. Above the dense ferns and towering club moss trees, the air would have been filled with silent, gliding shapes that could suddenly burst into explosive motion. For beetles, juvenile insects, and perhaps some tiny amphibians clinging to the water's edge, a passing Meganeura would have been as terrifying as any later raptor dinosaur. But if these predators were so successful, why did their reign in the sky come to an end when the atmosphere changed? For many millions of years, mornings in the carboniferous forests began with a kind of quiet tension. Dawn light filtered through towering club moss trees and giant ferns, turning the swamp's surface into a pale sheet of mist. In that dim, heavy air, Meganeura clung to a trunk or reed, wings held out like fragile glass, waiting for the first weak shafts of sunlight to warm the powerful flight muscles inside its chest. This simple act played an important role in its daily survival. With oxygen levels far higher than today, those muscles could load with energy quickly, but they still needed heat to work at full strength. As its body temperature rose, the insect's huge compound eyes began to scan the water below and the forest edge beyond. Every ripple, every twitch of a leg on a floating leaf, every shadow of a smaller insect rising from the reeds was registered and sorted. In this world, the air itself was Meganeura's hunting ground. Scientists have evidence showing that modern dragonflies rarely waste energy on long chases. Instead, they launch short, explosive flights, intercepting prey with sudden changes of direction and speed. Meganeura almost certainly hunted in the same way, but scaled up to a far more dramatic level. A quick burst from its resting perch could carry it across a pool in a heartbeat, front legs snapping forward like grappling hooks to seize an unsuspecting insect the size of a modern songbird. In that instant, the victim never had a chance. The strong, veined wings of Meganeura were built for acceleration and control rather than slow soaring. By beating each pair independently, it could roll, pitch, and twist through the crowded airspace between tree trunks and over-tangled swamp plants. Short patrols along forest edges, sudden dives toward the water, and rapid climbs to avoid branches turned each hunt into a series of precise aerial maneuvers. In an atmosphere rich in oxygen, those repeated bursts were sustainable in a way that would exhaust most flying animals today. But did these giant hunters share the sky peacefully, or did they fight for it? Fossils cannot show direct behavior, yet scientists have pointed to modern dragonflies as one of the most useful analogs. Many living species are solitary, with males defending territories along streams and ponds. In a carboniferous environment capable of supporting dense insect populations, Meganeura may have patrolled overlapping routes, driving rivals away from the best hunting corridors above open water and sunlit clearings. Despite its size, Meganeura was not invincible. Sudden storms could turn its hunting grounds into deadly wind tunnels, smashing delicate wings against branches. Wildfires, fed by oxygen-rich air and thick plant matter, could sweep through dry patches of forest with terrifying speed. Near the water's surface, large amphibians or early reptile-like vertebrates might have lunged upward, jaws snapping shut around any giant insect that ventured too close. Here, a pattern interrupt in Earth's story becomes clear. Everything about Meganeura's lifestyle, its size, its rapid attacks, its dominance of the aerial realm, depended on that unusual atmosphere. Yet even as it hunted over quiet swamps, the very air that empowered it was beginning to shift. The foundations of its kingdom were already changing. and those changes would one day bring its reign to an end. For many millions of years, the air itself turned small creatures into aerial hunters. Meganeura combined giant size, powerful flight, and sharp, grasping jaws to become one of the most dangerous insects in Earth's history. Its wings cut through the heavy, oxygen-rich atmosphere like blades. Yet while the skies were filled with fast, precise killers, the forest floor hid something that would appear even more unsettling to a human eye. Beneath the canopy of the Carboniferous coal forests, another giant moved in a very different way. It did not dart or swoop. It crawled. This was Arthropleura, one of the largest land arthropods ever known, sliding slowly between tree roots and fallen logs. At full length, it could reach around 2 to 2.5 meters, longer than many people are tall, its body as wide as a small table and pressed close to the damp ground. The overall shape of Arthropleura was millipede-like, but on a scale that seems almost unreal. Its broad back was covered with overlapping armor plates, forming a low segmented shell. Each segment carried a pair of strong jointed legs that lifted and pushed in a slow, coordinated wave. From above, it would have looked like a living trackway, a moving section of the forest floor, armored against attack. Its name reflects this unusual construction. Arthropleura roughly means jointed ribs, or jointed side, a reference to the many articulated body segments and the lateral plates that locked them together. Scientists have used these features to understand how its body worked as a kind of flexible tank. The side plates helped protect the softer inner tissues while still allowing the long body to bend, turn, and navigate around roots, stones, and decaying trunks. Fossils of Arthropleura come mainly from the late Carboniferous rocks of what is now Europe and North America. In those regions, dense swamp forests stretched for great distances, filled with tall club moss trees, giant horsetails, and thick mats of fallen leaves. Meganeura ruled the air above these wetlands, but Arthropleura occupied a very different niche on the forest floor, moving through leaf litter and along muddy channels where light barely reached the ground. Evidence showing that Arthropleura was not a fast predator comes from both its body plan and its likely food sources. Its mouth parts do not show the kind of piercing structures seen in active hunters, and the surrounding sediments are rich in plant remains. Many scientists interpret it as herbivorous or detritivorous, feeding on fallen leaves, spores, and decaying wood. Instead of sharp hunting teeth, its power came from size, armor, and sheer presence. This created a new kind of threat in the Carboniferous environment. Arthropleura probably did not chase other animals, yet its massive plated body would have been nearly untouchable to most predators sharing the forest. What kind of vertebrate could easily flip or bite through such a broad, reinforced shell? Its survival strategy played an important role in showing how the ancient atmosphere allowed bulk, rather than speed, to become a successful defense. Scientists have long asked a simple question: how could an animal like this grow so large on land? The answer leads back to the same invisible force that lifted Meganeura into the air. The superoxygenated atmosphere did not only empower swift sky hunters, it also supported slow, armored giants creeping through the shadows, and the rise of creatures like Arthropleura foreshadows the moment when that atmospheric advantage would begin to fade. To understand that advantage, the scene must shift from the air to the ground. In the late Carboniferous, around 315 to 299 million years ago, the land that is now Europe and North America lay near the equator, wrapped in vast swamp forests. These were not quiet woodlands. They were dense, towering factories of oxygen. The canopy rose from giant club mosses, horsetails, and seed ferns, some as tall as modern buildings. Beneath them, the forest floor formed a dark, humid underworld. Thick carpets of decaying leaves and bark covered the ground. Fallen trunks of towering club mosses lay like collapsed pillars, while tangled roots and buttresses created walls and tunnels. Shallow pools and slow streams reflected only a hint of light from above, turning the floor into a maze that favored long, low bodies hugging the ground. This was Arthropleura's world. Sliding between rotting logs and over mats of wet plant debris, this enormous millipede relative followed natural corridors of mud and peat. Its many legs gripped the unstable surface, its armored plates shielding the soft body beneath from sharp branches and hidden holes. In such an environment, a broad, flexible body was an advantage. It could press under obstacles, bridge gaps between roots, and turn the cluttered forest floor into a network of living highways. Around it moved a complex community. Early amphibians, some shaped like giant salamanders, slithered through the mud and shallow pools, their bodies pressed low as they hunted small prey. On slightly drier patches, the first small reptiles ventured away from the water, testing a more independent life on land. Other arthropods shared the shadows. Smaller millipedes, centipedes, spiders, and insects, each adapted to the damp, oxygen-rich air. Above this dim floor, the sky was ruled by Meganeura and its kin, dragonfly-like insects with wingspans over half a meter, scanning the forest for movement below. Scientists have found fossils and ancient coal seams that tie this entire environment to the air itself. These swamp forests pumped enormous amounts of oxygen into the atmosphere through photosynthesis. At the same time, huge quantities of dead plant material fell, piled up, and were buried in waterlogged sediments. There, cut off from full decay, it was slowly compressed into coal, locking away carbon for many millions of years. With carbon trapped, oxygen levels climbed, turning the Carboniferous atmosphere into one of the most oxygen-rich periods in Earth's history. In this setting, Arthropleura likely played an important role as a major consumer of leaf litter and plant debris. Instead of slicing flesh with strong teeth like later dinosaurs, it processed fallen leaves, bark fragments, and soft plant tissues along the ground. By breaking down this vast biomass, it helped move nutrients back into the swamp ecosystem. In return, its size and armor made it a moving fortress in a world still dominated by small vertebrates. What predator could easily bite through such layered plates? Evidence showing that few animals could challenge it raises a final question. In a forest that seemed built for giants and an atmosphere that favored them, what changed to bring this age of armored crawlers and giant insects to an end? To understand what ended this age of giants, it helps to look closely at one of the most impressive of them. Arthropleura was not just a large millipede-like creature. It was a segmented fortress stretched across the forest floor. Fully grown individuals could reach around 2.5 meters in length, longer than many adult humans are tall, and perhaps half a meter across. Laid out on the ground, one would have matched a dining table in length, but remained low enough to slide under fallen branches. Its body was built from many repeating segments, each bearing a pair of legs, so the entire animal formed a long, articulated platform. Scientists have compared it to a living conveyor belt of armored plates and walking limbs. The top of this platform was protected by overlapping dorsal plates that formed a hard exoskeletal roof. These plates locked together like tiles on a shield, creating a continuous barrier from head to tail. Along the sides, additional lateral plates flared outward, shielding the softer tissues beneath. This gave Arthropleura a low, broad, heavily defended profile that hugged the ground. For any predator with simple jaws and small teeth, flipping or piercing such a structure would have been extremely difficult. Beneath this armor, dozens of legs moved in coordinated waves. Each step was small, but taken together they produced smooth, steady progress over the uneven, debris-strewn terrain of Carboniferous forests. The many contact points spread its weight so that logs, roots, and thick mats of leaves became manageable obstacles rather than barriers. Staying close to the ground increased stability, reducing the risk of rolling or being toppled by impact. It did not sprint, it advanced. However, a body this large presented a serious challenge. Arthropleura, like many arthropods, breathed through a tracheal system. tiny tubes branching from openings along its sides, carrying oxygen directly to tissues by diffusion. Under modern atmospheric conditions, with about 21% oxygen, such a system limits how big land arthropods can become. Diffusion alone struggles to supply enough gas deep inside a thick body. Evidence showing that Carboniferous air held roughly 30 to 35% oxygen explains how this giant could function. With more oxygen molecules in every breath of air, diffusion could support a much larger body volume. In this superoxygenated environment, its long, low shape, heavy armor, and many legs worked together as a single integrated design. The armor protected it, the legs stabilized it, and the enriched air powered the tissues inside. On the forest floor, it would have appeared less like an insect and more like a moving log, slowly but confidently pushing through ferns and fallen trunks. Its size played an important role in deterring attack, while its physiology quietly depended on the atmospheric boost of its time. But such a specialized fortress came with hidden costs. What would happen if that invisible support system in the air began to fade? Or if new predators learned how to turn this living shield into a vulnerable target? That question leads straight to another mystery hidden inside this living fortress. A body the length of a small car had to be powered somehow, yet the very parts that would reveal its feeding habits are almost missing from the fossil record. For millions of years, Arthropleura crawled across the coal forests, but its jaws, mouthparts, and delicate head structures rarely survived the journey into stone. Most fossils of Arthropleura are spectacular armor plates and long articulated segments, or broad trackways stamped into ancient mud. These show its size, its gait, even how its weight was distributed. But skull elements and mouthparts are extremely rare and often poorly preserved. Thin, lightly mineralized structures decayed or were crushed before burial, leaving scientists with only fragments. As a result, one of the most basic questions remains surprisingly hard to answer. What did this giant actually eat? To solve that problem, researchers turned to indirect clues. Arthropleura lived in dense, humid forests filled with ferns, seed ferns, and early trees, where thick carpets of fallen leaves and rotting wood covered the ground. In similar environments, modern millipedes and many arthropods feed on decaying plant matter rather than hunting. Scientists have used this comparison, along with the animal's slow, heavy build, to suggest that Arthropleura was likely herbivorous or detritivorous, processing soft vegetation, leaf litter, and decomposing material instead of chasing prey. There's also physical evidence showing that its world was rich in plant debris. In some Carboniferous deposits, coprolites, fossilized droppings associated with large arthropods, contain tiny fragments of plant tissue, spores, and finely ground organic material. While it is difficult to prove that any single coprolite belonged to Arthropleura, the size and context of some samples strongly hint at a plant-based diet. This would fit a creature that moved steadily rather than quickly, taking in large volumes of low-energy food in a powerful, oxygen-rich environment. Another clue comes from its overall design. Predatory arthropods tend to have specialized grasping limbs, piercing mouthparts, or strong, cutting teeth-like structures for subduing struggling victims. Arthropleura's preserved segments tell a different story. Its main weapons were not jaws for killing, but thick armor, sheer body mass, and possibly chemical defenses that made its outer shell unpleasant or dangerous to bite. It was more like a moving shield than an active hunter, difficult to attack rather than deadly in pursuit. This pattern interrupts the simple idea that high oxygen only produced giant predators such as Meganeura. The same atmospheric conditions that allowed dragonfly-like insects to become aerial hunters also allowed a slow, plant-feeding titan to thrive on the forest floor. Elevated oxygen supported the tracheal breathing systems of both, reshaping entire food webs many millions of years ago. Top hunters circled above, while armored giants pushed through the undergrowth below, all linked to the invisible chemistry of the air. But what happened when that chemistry shifted and the oxygen advantage began to fade from the forests and swamps that had built these giants? As the oxygen advantage weakened, the giants did not simply vanish in an instant. In some places, they left something else behind. Long, mysterious trails pressed into ancient mud. These were not scattered footprints from dinosaurs with strong legs and heavy bones, but continuous bands of small impressions, running side by side for meters at a time. These fossil trackways are linked to Arthropleura, one of the most extraordinary arthropods that ever walked the land. Many millions of years ago, along riverbanks and floodplains, its many legs pressed into soft sediment, carving out parallel rows of dimples and grooves. Some tracks are so wide that only a multi-legged body nearly as long as a small car can explain them, with the spacing of each mark matching a giant millipede-like animal rather than any reptile. Scientists have studied these trackways in great detail because they hold evidence showing that movement can be reconstructed even when the body is gone. By measuring stride length, the distance between left and right rows, and the depth of each impression, researchers can estimate how fast Arthropleura walked and how wide its body must have been. The pattern of overlapping leg marks suggests that its limbs moved in coordinated waves, forming a steady, rolling gait instead of short, explosive sprints. The depth of the tracks also provides important clues. In some sections, the impressions are shallow and regular, indicating slow, even progress across firmer ground. In others, the marks plunge deeper and become slightly irregular, hinting at softer mud along a river margin where the heavy body sank more with each step. This changing pattern has played an important role in showing how the animal reacted to different parts of its environment as it moved. From this evidence, a vivid scene can be rebuilt. Along the edge of a carboniferous river, dense plants lean over dark water, and thick mats of fallen leaves cover the ground. A giant Arthropleura pushes through, its armored segments glistening with moisture, each leg planting firmly into the mud. It follows the curve of the bank, weaving around half-buried logs, leaving behind deep, repeating tracks that mirror its long, segmented body. At certain points, the trackway suddenly tightens or pauses. Here, scientists have evidence showing that the animal may have stopped to feed on damp piles of decaying plant debris washed up by floods. While it grinds through rotting ferns and bark with mouthparts instead of teeth, smaller creatures react. Amphibians and early reptiles pull back into the shade as this moving wall of armor approaches, while insects and lesser arthropods dart between its legs or share the same waterlogged logs. In this way, Arthropleura was one of the most dominant presences on the forest floor. Slow-moving, but powerful enough to reshape leaf litter, open narrow paths, and constantly disturb tiny habitats with every step. Yet even as its tracks show control over its world, they also mark a moment in time before new threats arrived. What would happen when changing air, shifting climates, and evolving vertebrate predators began to challenge this armored titan's quiet rule? For many millions of years, that quiet rule depended on something invisible. It was not sharper claws or stronger armor that decided which creatures could dominate the carboniferous forests. It was the simple act of breathing. Most insects and many other arthropods did not breathe with lungs like later vertebrates. Instead, their bodies were lined with tiny openings called spiracles, arranged along the sides of the exoskeleton. Each spiracle led into a branching network of air-filled tubes known as tracheae, which split again and again into finer tracheoles that reached deep between cells. Oxygen did not travel in blood the way it does in mammals. It moved directly through this internal airway system, straight to the tissues that needed it. This design had great advantages in a small body. Short distances meant that oxygen could spread or diffuse quickly from the outside air to the inner organs. In a creature only a few millimeters across, a passive flow of gas through narrow tubes was enough to power fast movements, strong jaws, and rapid wing beats. Scientists have evidence showing that even early insects possessed surprisingly complex tracheal networks, suggesting that this breathing system played an important role in their rapid rise. However, diffusion has strict physical limits. As body size increases, volume grows faster than surface area, and the path from a spiracle to the deepest tissues becomes longer. Oxygen molecules still move randomly and slowly through the air-filled tubes. Beyond a certain scale, they simply cannot arrive fast enough to fuel active muscles. This creates one of the most unforgiving constraints in animal biology. Under a given oxygen level, there is a maximum size above which an insect would suffocate from the inside out. A simple comparison helps make this clear. Imagine the tracheal system as a city's road network. The spiracles are the main highway entrances, and the tracheae are the branching streets that carry traffic into every neighborhood. If the roads cannot be widened and the cars cannot go any faster, there is a limit to how many people can reach their workplaces each morning. Add too many buildings and traffic collapses. In the same way, without extra oxygen in the air, there is a hard cap on how much body volume those tiny roads can supply. During the late Carboniferous, the atmosphere itself changed the rules. Oxygen levels rose to around 30–35%, far higher than the 21% of today. In effect, this superoxygenated air widened the roads inside insect bodies. Each breath carried more oxygen molecules, and diffusion through the tracheal tubes became powerful enough to support much larger forms. This is why giant dragonfly relatives like Meganeura, with wingspans over half a meter, could patrol the skies, and why Arthropleura could stretch along the forest floor without its inner tissues starving for air. Yet this same system that allowed them to become giants also locked them into a dangerous dependence. What would happen if the atmosphere shifted again and those generous oxygen levels fell? When the air itself began to change, the tracheal networks that once enabled dominance would become severe liabilities, setting the stage for a dramatic fall from power in the chapters to come. In the age of giant insects, the air itself acted like a hidden engine, turning ordinary arthropods into powerful specialists. Many millions of years ago, this invisible force turned light wings and hollow tubes into one of the most dramatic biological advantages in Earth's history. To see how it helps to compare the giants of the past with the modest insects of the present. Modern dragonflies are agile hunters, but their largest wingspans reach only about 12 to 15 centimeters. In the Carboniferous forests, fossils show dragonfly-like Meganeura spreading its wings to nearly 70 centimeters, rivaling the span of a modern eagle. On the ground, no land arthropod today even approaches the size of Arthropleura, the millipede-like titan that stretched more than 2 meters across the forest floor. Scientists have evidence showing that insect design has not fundamentally weakened. Instead, the physical rules set by the atmosphere have changed. Higher oxygen turned every breath into a performance boost. Insects do not pull air with lungs, but rely on branching tracheal tubes that deliver oxygen directly to their tissues. When the surrounding air is rich in oxygen, each tiny opening can feed more gas into the system with every cycle. This means flight muscles can contract more often and with greater force, powering longer glides, faster acceleration, and more sudden turns. In a superoxygenated environment, the same wing stroke delivers more energy, so large bodies can still launch, climb, and chase. However, the physics of size sets strict limits. As an insect grows larger, its volume and mass increase faster than its surface area. Volume controls how much oxygen its tissues demand, while surface area limits how much air can enter through the spiracles and tracheae. Without abundant oxygen, a giant insect faces a brutal trade-off: either suffocate under its own needs, or devote so much internal space to breathing tubes that little room remains for muscles, organs, and strong protective armor. Consider a thought experiment. Imagine a modern cockroach suddenly expanding until it matches the mass of a medium-sized dog. Its body shape might look familiar, but its tracheal system would not scale well. The distance from the surface to its deepest tissues would grow, yet the passive diffusion of oxygen would not keep pace. In today's thinner air, its muscles would starve, its movement would slow, and it might collapse under its own metabolic demands. In carboniferous air, that same scaled-up insect could potentially survive because every breath would carry far more oxygen through the same basic design. In this way, the ancient atmosphere played an important role as a kind of global exoskeleton upgrade. Thick, oxygen-rich air allowed arthropods to push past normal-size limits and seize roles later filled by vertebrates, taking the place of small predators, scavengers, and even some mid-level hunters. But what happens when that supercharged air begins to thin and new rivals with bones, jaws, and teeth enter the scene? The answer would reshape entire ecosystems. That thinning air was not an accident. It was the end of one of the most dramatic atmospheric experiments the planet has ever run. Many millions of years ago, long before dinosaurs left their powerful marks in the fossil record, the land itself began to reshape the sky. During the Carboniferous period, vast swamp forests spread across the equatorial regions of the supercontinents. Towering lycopsid trees, giant ferns, and thick stands of horsetails filled low, humid basins. In this dense green world, every sunny day drove intense photosynthesis. These plants pulled carbon dioxide from the air and released oxygen, turning quiet wetlands into gigantic natural oxygen factories. The key, however, was not just how much they produced, but what happened when they died. In many of these swamps, fallen trunks, leaves, and roots dropped into waterlogged, low-oxygen environments. Here, normal decay slowed to a crawl. Microbes that would usually break down wood and soft tissues struggled in the stagnant, acidic waters. Instead of returning quickly to the atmosphere, layer after layer of plant material was buried. Over time, those buried layers were compressed and heated deep underground. They eventually became the coal seams that are mined in many regions today. Scientists have strong evidence showing that this long-term burial locked away enormous amounts of carbon that would otherwise have combined with oxygen to form carbon dioxide. With the carbon trapped below ground, the oxygen produced at the surface was left behind in the air. This imbalance slowly transformed the entire atmosphere. Across millions of years, oxygen levels climbed from more modest values to an estimated 30 to 35%, far higher than the roughly 21% seen in the modern environment. It was not a sudden spike. It was a steady, relentless rise, driven by forests that did not know they were rewriting the rules for animal life. High oxygen did more than help arthropods grow larger. It also changed how the land burned. With so much oxygen available, dry plant material ignited more easily, and wildfires burned hotter and more often. Charcoal layers in ancient rocks provide evidence showing that fire played an important role in these ecosystems. Flames could cut back forests, open clearings, and then allow plants to regrow, creating complex feedbacks between vegetation, fire, and the air itself. In this sense, Earth was running a global experiment. Swamp forests pumped out oxygen, burial of plant remains pulled carbon from circulation, and the atmosphere thickened with the very gas that supercharged giant arthropods. But what happens when those same forests retreat? The swamps drain, and new, more active vertebrate hunters begin to test this oxygen-rich stage? The next shift would not be gentle. For many millions of years, that oxygen-rich experiment filled the skies with more than a single giant insect. It created an entire class of airborne hunters. Among the most impressive were the dragonflies, members of the group Meganeuridae, whose wide wings and long bodies made the ancient air feel crowded and dangerous. These insects looked, at first glance, like oversized dragonflies, But they were not true dragonflies as known from later periods. Meganeura, with a wingspan approaching 70 centimeters, is one of the most famous, yet it was only one member of a broader lineage. Scientists have described related genera with slightly shorter wings, narrower bodies, or different vein patterns, showing that this was not a single oddity, but a successful group that ruled late Carboniferous and early Permian skies. Their strong, spiny legs and forward-facing eyes suggest fast, visual hunters that seized prey in midair. Within this group of griffinflies, diversity was striking. Some species carried long, tapering wings suited to fast, straight flight over open wetlands, while others had broader wings that likely allowed tighter turns among dense tree trunks. Body proportions also varied, from relatively slender forms that may have chased swarms of smaller insects to heavier, more robust predators that could overpower larger victims. This variation hints at an entire guild of large aerial hunters, each exploiting a slightly different niche in the same rich environment. Fossils preserve delicate wing impressions with complex vein networks, giving evidence showing that these insects were built for control and speed. In some species, the front and hind wings differ in shape, a design that can improve maneuverability. In others, the wings are almost uniform, better for long-distance gliding over swamp forests and broad coal-forming lowlands. Such differences suggest that the supercharged atmosphere did more than allow one giant predator to exist. It supported a layered community of powerful flyers competing, hunting, and avoiding one another in three-dimensional space. Griffinflies were not alone. The same high oxygen levels also allowed roach-like insects with broad bodies and long wings to reach sizes far beyond modern relatives. Hefty mayfly kin with large, sail-like wings probably filled the air in seasonal swarms, while ground and tree trunks hosted thick-bodied arthropods with armor-like exoskeletons. In this world, even familiar insect shapes were scaled up, turning ordinary forms into unsettling giants. What would it have felt like to walk through forests where each rustle might come from wings as wide as a human arm span? Fossil sites across what are now Europe, North America, and parts of Asia show this pattern repeating. Similar large winged insects appear in separate basins, separated by ancient seas, indicating that the effect was global rather than local. The same atmospheric conditions that fed swamp forests and buried plant material into coal played an important role in lifting insects to unprecedented sizes almost everywhere. Yet in the rock record, this age of giants does not fade gently. It ends. After tens of millions of years of dominance, the largest griffinflies and their oversized relatives disappear as oxygen levels fall and new vertebrate flyers begin to rise. What changed in the air, and which new hunters took their place in the skies? In the wake of the giant insects, the skies did not stay empty for long. During the late Paleozoic and into the early Mesozoic, a new kind of flyer began to rise from the forests and rocky slopes. These were vertebrates, animals with internal skeletons, and they entered an aerial world that had been insect-dominated for many millions of years. At first, some reptiles only glided. Long ribs or skin membranes stretched from their sides, turning their bodies into living parachutes that could sail between trees. Fossils from this time show delicate, extended bones that supported these wings, suggesting that even limited gliding gave a powerful advantage in escaping predators and reaching food. Over time, natural selection favored better control, stronger muscles, and more efficient shapes, slowly pushing some vertebrates from gliding into true powered flight. The arrival of pterosaurs marked one of the most dramatic changes in the history of the atmosphere. These early flying reptiles, appearing in the late Triassic, had long, strengthened wing fingers, lightweight but strong bones filled with air spaces, and muscular chests built for flapping. Scientists have found evidence showing that their lungs and blood systems were highly efficient, moving oxygen quickly through the body. This meant that even as oxygen in the air declined from earlier peaks, these animals could still support active flight. Compared with insects, vertebrate flyers carried major internal advantages. Insects relied on a network of tiny tubes that let oxygen simply diffuse into the body, a system that worked well when the air was rich in oxygen but struggled as levels fell. Vertebrates, however, used pumping hearts, complex lungs, and red blood cells to transport oxygen. This design allowed them to grow larger while still feeding their muscles with enough gas to power long flights and sudden bursts of speed. As these new flyers spread, they did not simply share the sky, they changed it. Many pterosaurs were sharp-beaked hunters that could snatch insects in midair or skim them from the water's surface. Some early birds and other small vertebrate flyers later developed teeth or claws and quick reflexes ideal for chasing and catching flying prey. Giant insects, already stressed by dropping oxygen and shifting climates, now faced agile aerial predators that could outclimb, outlast, and eventually outcompete them. Scientists have linked the decline of the largest insect lineages with this twin pressure. On one side, the physical environment shifted as oxygen levels fell closer to modern values. On the other, vertebrate flyers expanded into almost every aerial niche, taking over roles once held by dragonflies and other giants. Was this one of the most important turning points in the history of life in the air? If the same atmosphere that once empowered huge insects began to favor vertebrates instead, something fundamental in the balance of gases must have changed. But what exactly happened inside the air itself, and could such a transformation ever repeat in the distant future? In the wake of the Carboniferous oxygen high, the atmosphere did not crash in a single violent moment. Instead, over many millions of years, the same air that had once supercharged giant insects slowly lost its extra power. After peaking at around 30 to 35% oxygen, levels began a long, uneven slide through the late Carboniferous and into the Permian, drifting closer to and at times likely below the 21% seen in the modern world. This decline was not caused by a single disaster. It was driven by a chain of changes in Earth's environment that played an important role in reshaping life on land. As the climate became drier, the vast, humid coal swamps that had buried plant material and locked away carbon started to shrink. New types of vegetation, including seed-bearing trees that could live on higher, drier ground, spread across the continents. Less plant matter ended up trapped in wet, oxygen-poor sediments, so less carbon was buried, and less free oxygen could build up in the air. At the same time, the continents themselves were moving. Tectonic collisions welded scattered landmasses into the huge supercontinent Pangaea. This changed wind patterns, rainfall, and ocean circulation. With altered currents came shifts in nutrient cycles, changing where plankton thrived and where dead organic material was stored on the seafloor. Scientists have found evidence showing that these tectonic and climatic changes together gradually reduced the rate at which carbon was locked away and oxygen was released. For insects and other arthropods, this slow atmospheric adjustment had a very direct physical consequence. Their bodies breathe through branching tubes that carry oxygen from tiny openings in the outer shell deep into the tissues. When oxygen is abundant in the air, these tracheal tubes can deliver enough gas even to very large bodies. But as oxygen concentration falls, diffusion becomes less effective. The maximum body size that such a system can support shrinks. This means that, over time, lineages adapted to giant size were squeezed. To survive, they had to evolve smaller, lighter bodies with shorter distances for oxygen to travel, or risk suffocating from the inside. In this way, invisible changes in the air set a hard upper limit on how big an insect's exoskeleton and muscles could become. Could powerful wings and strong legs make up for a failing internal supply of oxygen? The answer, written in fossils, appears to be no. The fossil record shows a clear pattern. The largest dragonfly-like dragonflies and enormous millipede relatives cluster in high oxygen intervals of the late Carboniferous. Later Permian rocks still contain insects, but their maximum sizes are smaller, consistent with a world where oxygen decline capped how large tracheal breathers could grow. From a geological perspective, this shift took tens of millions of years, but for individual lineages, it was a rapid environmental squeeze. In only a few 100,000 generations, bodies built for giant flight faced an atmosphere that no longer supported their scale. Some adapted downward, others vanished entirely. What happened when new vertebrate flyers entered this changing sky will reveal even more about why the age of giant insects truly ended. For many millions of years, the coal forests had seemed almost unstoppable, spreading across low continents in a humid, green belt that fed the oxygen boom and sheltered the giants of the undergrowth. But the stage that supported these powerful ecosystems did not last forever. The world itself began to shift beneath their roots. Late in the Carboniferous and into the Permian, the climate started to change. Regions that had once been persistently wet and swampy became more seasonal, with longer dry periods and stronger contrasts between wet and drought. Vast, continuous wetlands broke apart into scattered patches along rivers and coastal plains. Instead of endless dark swamps, the landscape became a mosaic of drier uplands, open woodlands, and shrinking bogs. This fragmentation had deep consequences for the atmosphere. The great coal swamps had played an important role as a planetary pump, locking away enormous amounts of carbon in buried plant remains. With fewer extensive swamps, less plant material was preserved as coal, and more was simply broken down and returned to the air. Oxygen production from these dense forests declined, and the powerful driver that had pushed atmospheric oxygen to one of the most extreme highs in Earth's history began to weaken. At the same time, a more seasonal, drier environment set the stage for a different kind of threat. In a world already rich in oxygen, fire was always a danger. As the climate dried, wildfires likely became more frequent and more intense, sweeping through forests that had once been shielded by constant moisture. Charcoal layers in rocks from this time provide evidence showing that large fires burned across ancient landscapes. These fires did not just remove trees, they also disrupted soils, killed seedlings, and made it harder for forests to recover their former density. In this changing world, forest collapse and fire fed into each other. Thinner, patchier woods meant less shade and more drying of the ground, which in turn made new fires easier to start. Each major burn released stored carbon and consumed oxygen, further eroding the atmospheric conditions that had allowed insects and other arthropods to reach such extraordinary sizes. Could a giant dragonfly really thrive in a landscape where its breeding pools dried more often and its hunting grounds burned more regularly? For specialists like the millipede-like Arthropleura, the impact was even more severe. This enormous creature depended on broad, stable carpets of leaf litter and decaying plant material on the forest floor. As forests retreated and became more open, those deep, humid layers thinned or vanished. The habitat that once stretched unbroken for hundreds of kilometers fractured into isolated refuges, surrounded by harsher, drier ground and more variable conditions. The giants lost not only space, but also the very air that had supported their bulk. With forests in retreat, oxygen levels drifted downward, narrowing the safety margin for large-bodied arthropods whose breathing systems were already near their limits. The world that had favored them was literally burning and drying away. This was the beginning of the end for the oxygen titans. And into this unstable environment, new vertebrate flyers would soon rise to challenge whatever giants remained. As oxygen levels slipped and the coal forests fractured, the age of giant arthropods entered its final act. For many millions of years, high oxygen, endless wetlands, and a lack of aerial vertebrates had worked together to build a world of oversized wings and armored bodies. Now those same forces were reversing, and the giants faced a harsh new test. 3 pressures closed in at the same time. Falling oxygen reduced the maximum size that tracheal breathing could support, turning every breath into a tighter constraint. Shrinking, drying forests stripped away the stable, humid environments that had sheltered large-bodied insects and millipede-like creatures. At the same time, vertebrate predators and competitors spread across land and into the air, bringing strong jaws, sharp teeth, and fast nervous systems into habitats once ruled by invertebrates. The atmosphere itself had changed, and with it, the balance of power. Under these conditions, evolution offered only a few basic paths. Lineages could shrink, evolving smaller bodies that needed less oxygen. They could shift into new ecological niches, perhaps becoming nocturnal, burrowing, or adopting different foods. Or they could vanish completely. Scientists have examined the fossil record and found evidence showing that some giant insect groups did not leave a trail of gradually smaller descendants. Instead, they appear, dominate for a time, and then simply disappear. For them, the window of opportunity closed too quickly. One of the most striking examples is the dragonflies, including the Meganuridae. These dragonfly-like aerial hunters with wingspans approaching a meter were once the top predators of the skies. Their fossils are common in late Carboniferous and very early Permian rocks, but then the record changes. As oxygen declined and climates grew more seasonal, giant forms vanish, replaced by smaller insect flyers that could function in thinner air and more varied environments. Later, early pterosaurs and other vertebrate flyers would rise, filling the high atmosphere with powerful, bone-framed wings that left little room for fragile oxygen giants. On the ground, Arthropleura faced an equally unforgiving shift. This enormous many-legged arthropod was adapted to broad, damp, coal swamp floors where rotting plant material was abundant and humidity stayed high. As those forests retreated and drier landscapes spread, its long, rigid body plan became a liability. A creature built to glide over soft, wet ground had no easy path to become a smaller, more flexible generalist that could compete with agile vertebrates in patchy, open habitats. In this sense, the end of giant insects can be seen as atmospheric selection in action. The same invisible gas that had once granted them power now turned against them, stripping away their advantage breath by breath. In a world of changing air, new predators, and unstable environments, the oxygen titans lost their edge and slipped into deep time. But did the fall of these giants close the story of atmospheric influence on life? Or did it set the stage for an even more dramatic transformation? The story of oxygen and giants does not end with their extinction. It opens a new and unsettling question. If Earth's air climbed back toward 30 to 35% oxygen, could the age of enormous insects return? Could forests once again echo with the wing beats of dragonflies as wide as eagles, and the rustle of millipedes as long as a car moving through the undergrowth? At first glance, the physics might suggest a simple answer. Higher oxygen once allowed Meganeura, with its 2-foot wingspan, and Arthropleura, stretching several meters, to push the limits of arthropod design. Their tracheal breathing systems, built around tiny tubes and diffusion rather than lungs, worked more efficiently when every breath contained more oxygen. Scientists have evidence showing that body size in many arthropods tracks atmospheric oxygen through time, rising and falling as the air itself changes. So if the air grew richer again, would size simply follow? The ancient world that produced those monsters was very different from the present. During the late Carboniferous, vertebrates were still small, mostly tied to water, and had not yet filled the skies. Today, the environment is dominated by powerful vertebrate flyers and runners. Birds, bats, and even gliding mammals occupy the aerial hunting and scavenging roles that giant insects once held. On land, strong reptiles and mammals fill the roles of large herbivores and predators. Any insect attempting to grow to eagle size would not face an empty sky. It would face talons, beaks, and teeth. Evolutionary history also matters. The specific lineages that produced Meganeura and Arthropleura many millions of years ago are gone. Their disappearance, under falling oxygen and rising vertebrate pressure, filtered insect diversity. The survivors were those that could live, fly, and reproduce in thinner air, while avoiding faster, more agile predators with backbones. Over time, this likely played an important role in favoring smaller, more efficient forms with compact bodies and highly optimized wings, rather than slow, vulnerable giants. If oxygen rose again, insects might respond, but not by simply replaying the Carboniferous script. Some modern lineages could evolve larger sizes than the maximum seen today, especially in safer habitats such as dense forests or isolated islands. Yet vertebrates would not stand still. Scientists have suggested that higher oxygen could also make it easier for birds to fly at greater altitudes, for mammals to sustain more intense activity, or even for some lineages to explore new, larger body plans. Here, the pattern interrupts expectation. The same atmospheric change that might help insects grow could also supercharge their enemies. A hawk with more efficient muscles, or a bat with longer endurance, might be one of the most effective barriers against the rise of giant insects. Still, the underlying physics has not changed. Oxygen continues to set important limits on how big air-breathing animals can become. A perfect replay of Carboniferous giants is unlikely, but in a distant future with different climates, continents, and predators, entirely new kinds of giants could evolve, arthropod or otherwise. The air would again shape life, but in ways that remain only partly visible in the evidence of the past. And hidden in that uncertainty lies another question. How close is the modern world to testing those limits once more? The modern world may not be filled with dragonflies the size of eagles, but it is not entirely free of arthropod giants. In the dark waters off Japan, a creature spreads its legs wider than many people are tall. This is the Japanese spider crab, with a leg span that can reach more than 3.5 meters, making it one of the most striking examples of a modern arthropod pushing the limits of size. Its long, spidery limbs move slowly over the seafloor, supported by the surrounding water. The deep marine environment reduces the pull of gravity and helps carry its weight. Scientists have evidence showing that this aquatic support, combined with gills that can process large volumes of oxygen-rich water, allows such crabs to grow far larger than most land-dwelling relatives. In this way, the sea plays an important role in creating today's biggest arthropods. On land, the giants are smaller, but still impressive. In New Zealand, the giant weta can weigh as much as a small bird. Its heavy body and powerful legs adapted to a life among island plants rather than towering Carboniferous forests. In African forests, Goliath beetles grow thick, heavy shells and strong wing muscles, becoming some of the heaviest insects alive. In tropical regions, large centipedes stretch over 30 centimeters, their many legs and venomous fangs turning them into effective predators of small vertebrates. Yet even these modern monsters are dwarfed by the giants of many millions of years ago. Consider a large modern dragonfly with a wingspan of 12 centimeters. Meganeura, from the late Carboniferous, reached around 70 centimeters across. The difference is not just noticeable, it is dramatic. In the same way, a modern tropical centipede might reach the length of a human forearm, while Arthropleura extended more than 2 meters, as long as a small car, sliding through leaf litter with armored segments instead of bones. The habitats of these modern giants also reveal an important contrast. The largest whale crabs live in deep or coastal waters. The giant weta survives mainly on islands with limited mammal predators. Some of the biggest centipedes hunt in caves or dense tropical leaf litter. Rather than dominating entire ecosystems, these animals usually occupy narrow, specialized niches as scavengers herbivores, or ambush predators. Scientists have found evidence showing that today's oxygen levels, combined with intense competition from vertebrates with strong skeletons and sharp teeth, place firm limits on arthropod size. Air-breathing insects and millipedes still rely on tracheal tubes and diffusion, so the modern atmosphere does not give them the same advantage it once did. Yet the existence of spider crabs, giant weta, and Goliath beetles hints that the genetic and developmental pathways for large arthropods have not vanished. If the atmosphere and environment were to shift again, could these limits be tested once more? The answer may lie in how arthropods have already responded to past crises and in what their fossils reveal about survival at the edge of size itself. The fossils of those ancient giants hint at a world that feels like a nightmare, but the reality is more precise than popular images suggest. In many movies and games, giant mosquitoes and flies swoop down on humans, stabbing through skin with enormous needle-like mouthparts. The true carboniferous forests, filled with dragonfly-like meganeura and huge millipedes, were strange and dangerous, but the largest insects were not giant bloodsuckers hunting vertebrates. Most of the known giant insects were predators of other arthropods or feeders on plants and spores. Their jaws and mouthparts were shaped for gripping, cutting, or scraping, not for drilling into thick skin and large blood vessels. Scientists have found evidence showing that these animals were adapted to the small, delicate bodies of other invertebrates. A tiny mosquito can pierce a thin capillary with ease, but scaling that same feeding strategy up to eagle size creates serious mechanical problems. Mouthparts that pierce or sip are built to work on fine structures. As body size increases, the forces needed to push a long, narrow proboscis through tough hide rise faster than the strength of the mouthparts themselves. At some point, the structure would bend, snap, or become too heavy to move efficiently. In addition, drawing blood through a thick tube over a long distance would demand powerful suction and high energy, turning each meal into a difficult engineering challenge rather than a simple bite. Flight creates another hard limit. A mosquito enlarged to the mass of an eagle would carry a relatively heavy body on wings that, if simply scaled up, would not generate enough lift. Wing loading would soar, and the light, delicate frame that works at small size would become dangerously fragile. Even with more oxygen in the atmosphere, the muscles required to beat such wings fast enough would need to be far thicker, changing the entire body plan. This is why giant dragonfly-like forms are one of the most plausible aerial predators in high oxygen worlds. Their broad wings, strong flight muscles, and streamlined bodies already match the demands of fast, agile hunting. Scientists have studied their wing impressions and compared them with modern dragonflies, finding evidence showing that their design played an important role in making large size and powerful flight possible, even many millions of years ago. There is also the question of evolutionary pathways. Blood-feeding insects evolved in a world already filled with vertebrate predators, armored skin, and active defenses. There is no clear reason to expect these lineages to be the ones that fully exploit a high oxygen atmosphere when other arthropods are better suited to grow larger and hunt effectively. Instead, vertebrates with strong bones, sharp teeth, and advanced senses would compete fiercely with any rising insect giants. So the nightmare of eagle-sized mosquitoes is unlikely, but the alternative is still unsettling. A world with more and larger arthropod predators, scavengers, and decomposers would transform forests, shorelines, and even cave systems into arenas of constant invertebrate activity. What would it feel like to move through an environment where every fallen log might hide a predator the length of a human arm? To answer that, it is necessary to look more closely at how giant arthropods shaped their ecosystems when oxygen last pushed them toward their limits. In this ancient forest of towering trees and heavy, oxygen-rich air, danger did not always look the same. Some threats arrived like arrows from the sky. Others were living walls of armor that simply rolled through the undergrowth, too large and too strong for most predators to challenge. Meganeura was one of the most dramatic hunters of this world. With a wingspan wider than a human arm, long spiny legs and huge compound eyes, it turned the Carboniferous sky into a hunting ground. Scientists have found fossils showing that its delicate-looking wings were strengthened with a complex network of veins, allowing fast, agile flight. For small insects and early amphibians, this was one of the most terrifying sights imaginable. A silent shadow, then a sudden impact, and sharp mouthparts ended the struggle in seconds. On the forest floor, Arthropleura presented almost the opposite kind of danger. This millipede-like giant could reach lengths of 2 meters or more, its body protected by overlapping armor plates. Evidence showing that its broad, segmented back was built from many hard exoskeletal sections suggests that few animals dared to attack it. It may not have been a fast hunter, and it probably lacked large tearing teeth, but its size and defenses made it a risky target. In an environment filled with fallen logs and thick leaf litter, Arthropleura was like a moving fortress. These two arthropods show that danger in the Carboniferous had different faces. For a small flying insect, Meganeura's speed and precision were lethal weapons. For any creature thinking of biting into Arthropleura, the danger was reversed: broken jaws, damaged mouthparts, and wasted energy. Just as some dinosaurs relied on slicing teeth while others trusted heavy armor and tail clubs, these invertebrate giants used very different strategies to survive. They were not alone. Large predatory arachnids, including early relatives of scorpions and spiders, hunted through the shadows. Some ancient scorpion-like forms grew far larger than most modern species and carried strong pincers and venomous stings. In swampy margins and along stream banks, these hunters would have been serious threats to soft-bodied prey. Many millions of years ago, before the first large reptiles fully dominated the land, such arthropods played an important role as top or near-top predators. The scale of threat depended entirely on size and lifestyle. A juvenile amphibian hiding among roots feared the sudden rush of Meganeura's wings. A larger vertebrate, if it existed in the same habitat, might have ignored the dragonfly, but thought twice before attacking Arthropleura's armored back. This contrast mirrors the way scientists compare dinosaurs such as Tyrannosaurus rex and pack-hunting raptors. One used massive force and bone-crushing bites. The other relied on speed, coordination, and precision. In the Carboniferous, the oxygen titans were those whose bodies matched the physics and chemistry of their air. High oxygen fed Meganeura's flight muscles and allowed Arthropleura's huge body to breathe. But what happens when the air that empowered these giants begins to change? When the air that empowered giants begins to change, the story grows more mysterious. The Carboniferous atmosphere has vanished, leaving no jars of ancient air to test, no direct sample of the gas that once let insects reach the size of small birds. To uncover what really filled those ancient lungs, scientists must turn to indirect traces locked in rocks, fossils, and the chemistry of the buried earth. One of the most important challenges is simple to state, but difficult to solve. How much oxygen was in the air many millions of years ago? To answer this, scientists have developed powerful methods that treat the planet itself like a laboratory. They study sedimentary rocks that formed on ancient seafloors and in long-vanished lakes, measuring tiny variations in carbon and sulfur isotopes. These light and heavy versions of the same elements respond differently to life, weathering, and burial. When huge amounts of plant material were locked away as coal, the carbon cycle shifted, leaving evidence showing that free oxygen in the atmosphere must have risen. Sulfur tells a related story. In low oxygen oceans, certain bacteria change sulfur in ways that leave a clear chemical fingerprint in the rocks. Layers rich in these altered sulfurs, stacked through millions of years, help mark intervals when the global environment was starved of oxygen and when it was flooded with it. By combining these isotope records, researchers can build models of the entire Earth system, tracking how oxygen production by plants and oxygen consumption by decay and volcanoes changed through time. But rocks are not the only witnesses. Ancient fires also played an important role in recording the air of the Carboniferous. For a wildfire to ignite and keep burning, oxygen levels must rise above a critical threshold. Too little oxygen, and even dry forests refuse to burn. Scientists have found thick layers of fossil charcoal inside coal seams and ancient soils from the late Carboniferous and early Permian. This charcoal is the carbonized remains of plants that burned in ancient fires, hardened into black glassy fragments that still hold their shape. Because these fires could only rage in air rich enough to feed them, the abundance and distribution of fossil charcoal provide a powerful lower limit on past oxygen. In some intervals, charcoal becomes so common that it suggests not just frequent fires, but an atmosphere where flames spread easily across the landscape. This points toward superoxygenated air, consistent with estimates of 30 to 35% oxygen. Could such intense fire activity have shaped the forests that built the great coal swamps themselves? Plant fossils add another line of evidence. The leaves of ancient trees preserve stomata, the tiny openings that let gases move in and out. In living plants, stomatal density changes with atmospheric composition. High oxygen and low carbon dioxide often lead to fewer stomata. By comparing fossil leaves to modern relatives grown in controlled conditions, scientists can estimate past gas levels in the air that surrounded those forests. Even the insects themselves record the sky they breathed. The size distribution of arthropod fossils, from small ground dwellers to wide-winged flyers like Meganeura, reflects the limits of their tracheal breathing system. In periods when oxygen was high, giant forms are common. As modeled oxygen curves fall, maximum insect size shrinks. This pattern appears again and again in different fossil sites. Is it a coincidence or a direct imprint of the atmosphere on animal bodies? Together, these independent clues begin to converge. Geochemical records from carbon and sulfur, layers of fossil charcoal, plant stomata, and the changing bodies of arthropods all tell the same broad story. There was a time when oxygen spiked, forests burned, and insects swelled to extraordinary sizes before oxygen slowly dropped and the giants faded. In the next part, the focus shifts from how this strange atmosphere is known to why it changed, and what forces finally brought the age of giant insects to an end. That broad story is clear, but the details are still shifting with every field season. In the last few decades, new fossils have turned the age of giant insects from a simple picture into a far more complex and dynamic scene. Some of the most surprising discoveries have not been new monsters, but better views of creatures already known from fragments. In ancient coal seams and fine-grained lake beds, scientists have uncovered dragonfly-like wings preserved with delicate veins and even traces of original color patterns. In some cases, a single slab has revealed both left and right wings, allowing exact wingspan estimates instead of rough guesses from broken edges. These fossils show that some Carboniferous insects reached or even exceeded the size of classic giants such as Meganeura, while others remain small, filling different roles in the environment many millions of years ago. Other finds have come not from bodies, but from trackways. On old river floodplains, long chains of paired impressions record the slow passage of millipede-like arthropods, some wider than a human hand. Scientists have measured the spacing and depth of these tracks and compared them with body fossils, building stronger models of how large land arthropods walked, how strong their limbs were, and how heavy they might have been. In some cases, the tracks hint at animals larger than any known skeleton, suggesting that the upper size limits are still not fully mapped. At the same time, advances in imaging have opened these fossils in new ways. High-resolution CT scanning and 3D reconstruction allow researchers to see inside rock without breaking it, revealing wing bases, joint surfaces, and muscle attachment points hidden in stone. There is evidence showing that some of these giant forms had reinforced wing hinges and expanded flight muscles. features that played an important role in keeping such large air-breathing bodies aloft in dense forests and smoky skies. These internal details feed directly into aerodynamic and physiological models. How much lift could a 3-foot wingspan really generate? How fast could oxygen move through a tracheal system in an animal that size? By combining digital skeletons with simulated muscles and ancient air densities, scientists have begun to test which giants were strong flyers, which were gliders, and which may have been mainly climbing predators, lurking among tree trunks rather than soaring like eagles. Yet major debates remain. Scientists have proposed different peak oxygen levels, with some models favoring brief extreme spikes and others suggesting a more moderate but long-lasting plateau. Some argue that falling oxygen was the main brake on insect size, while others point to rising vertebrate predators whose strong jaws and sharp teeth would have changed the balance of power in the skies. There is also disagreement over the true dimensions of certain supposed giants, where isolated wings or segments may have led to overestimates. Each new fossil has the potential to overturn part of this picture. A single, fully articulated specimen can extend the known maximum size of a group, or reveal unexpected adaptations such as thicker exoskeletons, unusual breathing structures, or defensive spines that hint at powerful enemies. Trackways that show sudden changes in direction might even record hunting events where a giant insect turned or leapt to avoid something faster and more dangerous. In this way, the story of giant insects is not a closed chapter, but an active investigation. For millions of years, these animals shared their world with early amphibians and reptiles, and later, with the first true dinosaurs and flying vertebrates. What if a future discovery reveals a predator or a giant even more extreme than anything imagined so far? To understand why those possibilities matter, it is necessary to turn from fossils back to the air itself and ask what forces reshaped the atmosphere so completely that the age of giants came crashing down. For millions of years, the air above Earth has not been a silent backdrop, but a powerful force that shapes life. The mix of gases in the atmosphere acts almost like an invisible battlefield commander, deciding which bodies can grow large, which hunters become dominant, and which lineages are pushed toward extinction. In the Carboniferous, superoxygenated air turned forests into arenas for giant arthropods. With oxygen perhaps reaching 30 to 35%, diffusion through simple tubes in an insect's body was suddenly enough to power wings as broad as a human arm span. Dragonfly-like Meganeura, with wings over half a meter across, and millipede-like Arthropleura, stretching several meters along the forest floor, were not just curiosities. They were one of the most direct demonstrations that air chemistry can decide how big an animal can be and how strong its muscles may become. But the atmosphere did not always reward exoskeletons and tracheal tubes. Many millions of years later, during the Mesozoic greenhouse world, higher carbon dioxide and warm, stable climates favored very different champions. Vast plant growth, fueled by thick, humid air, supported herds of enormous sauropod dinosaurs. Long-necked giants with air-filled bones, massive lungs, and efficient, bird-like breathing systems could move huge volumes of oxygen through their bodies, even when overall oxygen levels were lower than in the Carboniferous. In this environment, size itself became a defense, and predators needed powerful jaws and strong teeth just to challenge them. Then came the ice ages, and the rules changed again. As climates cooled and ice sheets advanced and retreated, atmospheric carbon dioxide fell, temperatures dropped, and vegetation patterns shifted. Large mammals such as mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, and giant ground sloths thrived in some regions, while elsewhere, body sizes shrank as resources became more seasonal and unpredictable. Scientists have evidence showing that these swings in climate and air chemistry played an important role in deciding which mammal forms spread across continents and which vanished. Across all these eras, the atmosphere and life formed a feedback loop. Early forests pumped oxygen into the sky and locked carbon into future coal, raising oxygen high enough for giant insects. Later, expanding dinosaur ecosystems, soils, and plankton-rich seas altered carbon dioxide and oxygen again. Life changed the air through photosynthesis, respiration, and decay, and the air in turn rewarded certain lungs, skins, and skeletons while punishing others. The rise and fall of giant insects becomes just one chapter in a long series of atmospheric experiments. Pattern interrupt. What if the most dramatic atmospheric weapon is only just beginning to be used? Scientists have evidence showing that human activity is now shifting carbon dioxide and other gases faster than many natural changes in the past. If previous atmospheric swings could build dragonflies the size of birds and sauropods the size of buildings, what new evolutionary arms races might already be forming, hidden in the fossils of the future? The ancient oxygen spikes of the Carboniferous turned insects into monsters, but a different invisible gas is now reshaping the air. Instead of an oxygen surge, the modern atmosphere is experiencing a powerful rise in carbon dioxide, and this new experiment is already changing the face of the planet. In the last 2 centuries, burning coal, oil, and gas has poured vast amounts of CO2 into the sky. Cutting forests has removed many of the plants that once locked that carbon away. Scientists have measured CO2 climbing far beyond the levels that supported human civilizations in the past, and global temperatures are following. Heat waves are becoming more frequent. Some regions are turning drier, others wetter, and storm systems are gaining more energy from warmer oceans. Fire seasons are lengthening as landscapes dry, creating feedbacks that send even more carbon back into the air. Yet, in one important way, this is not a repeat of the Carboniferous. Oxygen, the gas that once fed giant dragonflies, remains relatively stable at around 21% of the atmosphere. Human activity has not yet driven huge swings in oxygen comparable to those many millions of years ago. However, localized drops are already appearing. In warming oceans, expanding dead zones are forming where oxygen is stripped from the water, suffocating fish, shellfish, and many other creatures that depend on dissolved oxygen to survive. Rising CO2 and warming temperatures are altering life in complex ways. Some plants grow faster with more carbon available, changing which species dominate forests and grasslands. Longer growing seasons in certain regions allow insects to produce extra generations each year. Disease-carrying mosquitoes are expanding into higher altitudes and latitudes as formerly cold areas become more hospitable. In the oceans, hotter, more acidic water is stressing coral reefs, dissolving the skeletons that form their strong frameworks and threatening entire reef communities built over millions of years. Seasonal timing is shifting as well. Many birds migrate earlier, plants flower sooner, and insect hatches move to new windows in the year. When these changes fall out of sync, predators can miss their main food pulses, while pests may find fewer natural enemies. Scientists have evidence showing that such mismatches are already affecting survival and reproduction in many species, even in environments that still look familiar on the surface. In this way, the parallel to the Carboniferous becomes clear. Ancient swamp forests unintentionally engineered an oxygen-rich atmosphere. Their buried remains formed coal that played an important role in later human history. Today, human industry is intentionally and unintentionally engineering a high CO2, warmer world. What will that do to body size, metabolism, and the structure of future ecosystems? The central concern is not the return of dragonflies with wingspans like eagles. Instead, the question is which organisms will become the new winners and which will be pushed toward extinction under this altered sky. Will heat-tolerant insects, resilient weeds, and opportunistic pathogens gain the greatest advantage? And will human societies be ready to live alongside the powerful new communities that this atmospheric experiment creates? Under a changing sky, The future giants are unlikely to be simple repeats of carboniferous dragonflies or millipede titans. Instead, the most successful lineages will be those that can exploit warmer temperatures, shifting habitats, and the new patterns of disturbance that follow. Many insects, some reptiles, and a few highly flexible mammals already show the traits that allow rapid expansion when the environment is pushed out of balance. Insects are among the first candidates. Higher temperatures can speed up their development, extend breeding seasons, and allow multiple generations each year. Certain beetles, mosquitoes, and agricultural pests already erupt into massive populations when winters grow milder and plant growth surges. Scientists have evidence showing that some modern insect outbreaks are linked to warming trends and expanding host plants. Yet even in a richer atmosphere, vertebrate predators, disease, and human control efforts would still limit how large and how numerous most insects could become. Body size trends under warming are complex. In some environments, higher temperatures favor smaller animals that shed heat quickly and reproduce fast, turning life into a race of many short generations, rather than a few giant bodies. In other regions, especially where water and nutrients are abundant, long-growing seasons might allow certain lineages to reach larger sizes. Aquatic habitats, where oxygen can be absorbed across gills or skin and body weight is supported by water, could again become one of the most favorable arenas for large forms. Arthropods in lakes, rivers, and coastal waters might be among the first to test these limits. Crabs, shrimp, and predatory aquatic insects could grow heavier armor, longer limbs, and more powerful claws if food remains plentiful. However, unlike many millions of years ago, these animals would share their ecosystems with strong fish, birds, and mammals that already dominate many food webs. Scientists have found evidence showing that the rise of vertebrate predators played an important role in limiting giant insects in the past, and similar pressures would operate in any future atmosphere. On land, a different kind of giant is already taking shape. In human-made environments, some of the most successful animals are not rare specialists, but common survivors: rats, pigeons, cockroaches, and certain ants. These urban lineages thrive on buildings, waste, artificial heat, and constant light. Over time, natural selection in cities could favor larger rats with stronger jaws, pigeons with altered wings for tight street canyons, or insects that follow electric light instead of the moon. These would be urban giants, shaped more by concrete and glass than by oxygen alone. Yet every projection comes with deep uncertainty. Rapid atmospheric change will create new winners, but it will also drive stress and extinctions on a massive scale. Which lineages will expand and which will vanish cannot be predicted with precision. What can be predicted is that this atmospheric experiment will bring surprises, and some may be far more dangerous than any giant insect from the distant past. That uncertainty invites a stark comparison. Imagine two alternate Earths, both bathed in air richer in oxygen than today, both with the same invisible chemical shift, but with very different winners. On one world, insects and their arthropod relatives reclaim the carboniferous advantage and grow large again. On the other, vertebrates take the lead, evolving larger bodies, faster muscles, and denser populations that press against every part of the environment. In the giant insect world, forests echo with the wing beats of dragonfly-like hunters as wide as an eagle, and millipede relatives stretch along the ground like living logs. Their bodies are powered by tracheal tubes that carry oxygen directly from the air, a system that becomes far more effective when that air is rich in oxygen. Scientists have found fossils of Meganeura and Arthropleura that provide evidence showing that such oversized arthropods once dominated swampy landscapes many millions of years ago. For humans, such animals would be unsettling and sometimes dangerous, but not necessarily apocalyptic. Thick clothing, sealed buildings, and transparent barriers would block most biting mouthparts and spiny legs. Even with strong jaws and gripping limbs, these animals lack the deep, penetrating teeth and crushing bones of large vertebrate predators. The greatest risks might come from crop destruction, venomous stings, and the spread of disease by enlarged mosquitoes and ticks that exploit dense human settlements. The vertebrate world tells a different story. Here, the same oxygen-rich air feeds powerful lungs, strong hearts, and explosive muscles in mammals, birds, and reptiles. Predators grow taller than vehicles, with long legs for pursuit and jaws lined with teeth that can slice flesh and snap bones. Evidence showing that higher oxygen can increase metabolic performance in modern animals suggests that such hunters could run farther, recover faster, and hunt more often. In open farmland, on coasts, and around expanding cities, direct encounters would be far harder to avoid. In both scenarios, the most serious danger does not come from cinematic attacks in dark forests, but from the slow fracture of food webs. As body sizes increase, appetites rise. Herbivores strip vegetation more quickly, insects devour crops and stored grain, and predators require more meat from shrinking wild populations and crowded livestock. Disease dynamics also shift as parasites track their enlarged hosts and new transmission routes open. Entire agricultural systems that once seemed stable could fail within a few growing seasons. From a human perspective, a planet filled with supercharged vertebrates is likely one of the most dangerous outcomes of an oxygen-rich future. Giant insects are frightening, but their vulnerabilities and the barriers already built into human life offer some defense. Large, energetic vertebrates, in contrast, can climb, dig, break, and plan. Yet both imagined worlds reveal the same lesson. The chemistry of the air has always played an important role in shaping power, size, and survival. What happens if that chemistry changes again, and real ecosystems begin to move in one of these directions? For many millions of years, the oxygen titans looked untouchable. Meganeura cruised above the forests with wide, steady wings, and Arthropleura moved through the swampy undergrowth like a living armored conveyor belt. In a world thick with oxygen and dense, wet vegetation, their bodies were not just possible, they were perfect. But perfection in one environment can become a trap in another. These giant arthropods were specialists. Their breathing systems, their heavy exoskeletons, and even their hunting and feeding strategies were tuned to a high-oxygen coal swamp world. Scientists have evidence showing that their tracheal tubes could move enough oxygen only because the air itself carried so much of it. That specialization made them powerful competitors, while the swamps stretched across continents. When those swamps shrank and oxygen began to fall, the very traits that once gave them an advantage turned into limits. This pattern is one of the most familiar themes in Earth's history. Dinosaurs such as long-necked sauropods, horned ceratopsians, and massive predators like Tyrannosaurus thrived under specific combinations of temperature, sea level, and atmospheric chemistry. Their strong limbs, heavy bones, and complex teeth were shaped by those conditions. When the climate shifted, volcanic gases darkened the sky or an asteroid struck. Entire groups that had dominated for millions of years vanished, while smaller, more flexible lineages survived. Even within those age of dinosaurs ecosystems, some hunters and herbivores were extreme specialists. Spinosaurids with long, narrow jaws were tied to river systems. Giant, armor-plated herbivores depended on particular plant communities. In each case, the same rule applied. The more tightly a body plan locked an animal to one set of conditions, the more vulnerable it became when that environment changed. Modern species show a similar tension between strength and fragility. Polar bears are built for sea ice, with thick fur, powerful limbs, and hunting strategies that depend on stable frozen platforms. Coral reefs are constructed by tiny animals that need precise temperatures and low acidity to build their calcium carbonate skeletons. Certain rainforest birds, insects, and amphibians live only in narrow bands of humidity and shade. Their success is remarkable, but it is also conditional. What happens when the conditions move? Ancient atmospheric changes usually unfolded over hundreds of thousands or millions of years, giving evolution time to test new forms. Lineages could shrink, shift ranges, or develop new ways to breathe and feed. In contrast, human-driven warming, ocean acidification, and rapid habitat loss are compressing that process into centuries or less. Scientists have gathered evidence showing that many species are already shifting their ranges uphill or poleward, but the pace of change is outrunning their ability to adapt. The rise and fall of the oxygen titans is therefore more than a story about giant insects. It is a warning that even the largest, most powerful organisms are tied to invisible rules set by air, water, and climate. When those rules are rewritten, dominance offers no guarantee. In the next section, the focus turns to how Earth's atmosphere might change again, and what kinds of winners and losers such a new world could create. Those rules of air and climate did more than crown and topple oxygen titans. They also quietly built a fuel source that still powers human cities. In the dark seams beneath modern landscapes lie the compressed shadows of the Carboniferous forests, the very world that allowed Meganeura, Arthropleura, and other giants to thrive. During the late Carboniferous, dense swamp forests spread across vast lowlands. Towering lycopsid trees, thick stands of horsetails, and fern-like plants grew in tangled mats, their roots locked in waterlogged soil. When these plants died, they often fell into stagnant pools where decay was slow. Layer after layer of trunks, branches, and leaves piled up, trapping enormous amounts of carbon that had been pulled from the atmosphere many millions of years ago. Over time, floods buried these plant layers under mud and sand. As sediments thickened, heat and pressure increased. The soft plant material was first squeezed into peat, then altered further into lignite, bituminous coal, and in some regions into hard anthracite. In this way, the original forest floor became a geological archive. Each coal seam preserved a chemical snapshot of an ancient ecosystem, recording how life had played an important role in drawing down carbon dioxide and boosting oxygen. Scientists have found fossils of tree trunks, spores, and even delicate plant impressions within and around these coal measures. Evidence showing that these rocks are not abstract minerals, but the crushed remains of entire environments. The same swamps that echoed with the wing beats of giant dragonflies and the movement of strong, armored millipede relatives were being slowly locked away beneath their own roots. Burning coal reverses that long burial in an instant. The carbon fixed by photosynthesis in those forests is released back into the air as carbon dioxide. In the Carboniferous, massive burial of plant matter helped lower atmospheric CO2 and raise oxygen, creating conditions that supported oversized arthropods. In the industrial age, the process runs in the opposite direction. Ancient carbon is freed rapidly, oxygen is consumed, and greenhouse gases accumulate, altering climate rather than building a high-oxygen world. Here lies one of the most striking ironies in Earth's history. The forests that once constructed a super-oxygenated atmosphere for giant insects have returned as black rock to fuel engines, power plants, and factories, driving a high CO2 world with very different consequences. Instead of enabling light-bodied arthropods with simple breathing systems, the changing atmosphere stresses coral reefs, melts ice, and reshapes weather patterns on a global scale. This connection ties modern industrial civilization directly to deep time. Dinosaurs never tapped this buried energy, but humans have become geological agents, shifting the same atmospheric levers that ancient plants once moved blindly. The difference is knowledge. Scientists have detailed records, climate models, and evidence showing that continued burning of coal and other fossil fuels will keep pushing the system. The next question is simple but profound. How far will that push go? And what forms of life will rise or fall as the air changes again? For many millions of years, Earth's atmosphere has not just been background scenery, but a powerful architect of life. In the Carboniferous, oxygen rose to levels far above those of the present day, then slowly fell again. That entire rise and fall cycle played out over tens of millions of years, an almost unimaginable stretch of time in which forests, insects, and early vertebrates could adjust step by step. During that slow climb to around 30 to 35% oxygen, giant dragonflies like Meganeura and car-length millipede relatives had time to evolve larger bodies, stronger breathing systems, and new ways of hunting or hiding. When oxygen later declined, some of these specialists lost their advantage. Fossils show that the biggest forms vanished, while smaller, more flexible insects carried on. The atmosphere changed, but it moved at a pace that still allowed evolution to experiment, fail, and try again. Modern atmospheric change is different in one critical way. Carbon dioxide levels, global temperatures, and regional oxygen conditions in the oceans are shifting measurably within a single human lifetime. In geological terms, this is not a slow drift. It is a sharp jolt. Scientists have detailed records and evidence showing that concentrations of greenhouse gases are rising faster than almost any known natural event outside of major volcanic crises or asteroid impacts. This difference in speed matters more than any single number. Evolutionary adaptation requires many generations for bones, lungs, and metabolisms to change. Species migration, as climates move toward the poles or up mountains, depends on forests, reefs, and grasslands shifting their ranges over centuries. The reassembly of entire ecosystems with predators, prey, and plants finding new balances can take tens of thousands of years. When temperature, acidity, or oxygen shift faster than those processes can keep up, extinction risk rises sharply. A simple human analogy makes this mismatch clear. Imagine a population trying to adapt to a hotter, thinner atmosphere by slowly evolving thicker skin, different lungs, and new blood chemistry. Before those changes can spread through more than a few generations, the climate jumps again, becoming even hotter or losing even more oxygen. How can long-term biological change keep pace with an environment that keeps moving the target every few decades? In the Carboniferous story, the air and its inhabitants co-evolved. Giant insects, dense forests, and high oxygen formed one of the most striking feedback loops in Earth's history, and each part played an important role in shaping the others. In the present, a single technological species is forcing rapid atmospheric shifts without giving most organisms time to respond. The tale of Meganeura and its kin shows what can grow when the atmosphere changes slowly. The unfolding human story may reveal what happens when that ancient partnership between life and air is abruptly broken, and something entirely new takes its place. For many millions of years, the air itself helped decide who lived, who hunted, and who became prey. In the Carboniferous, that decision favored forests so dense and dark that sunlight barely reached the ground, and arthropods that grew to terrifying sizes among the roots and fallen trunks. In this world of superoxygenated air, the base of the food web was a carpet of towering club moss trees, horsetails, and giant ferns. Their fallen leaves and branches piled up in thick, wet layers. There, broad armored millipede relatives such as Arthropleura crawled through the litter, turning dead plants into softer material that smaller decomposers could use. Scientists have evidence showing that these giant detritivores played an important role in breaking down the forests, linking the plant world to the animal world in a powerful chain of energy. Above them, the skies were another hunting ground. Dragonfly-like Meganeura, with wingspans wider than a human arm, patrolled the air. With large eyes and strong flight muscles fed by oxygen-rich air, they seized smaller insects in mid-flight, their mouth parts acting like fast, efficient teeth. In this ancient environment, giant insects were not side notes. They were among the top predators of their ecosystems. Then the atmosphere shifted. Oxygen levels fell, climates dried in many regions, and those endless swampy forests fragmented into patchier landscapes. As plant communities changed, some of the groups that had once dominated the Carboniferous declined, and the deep beds of stable leaf litter became less continuous. Arthropod giants, such as Meganeura and Arthropleura, lost both the physical advantage of high oxygen and the reliable habitats that had supported them. At the same time, vertebrates with internal skeletons of strong bones expanded into new roles on land and in the air, eventually giving rise to early reptiles, then to flying pterosaurs that hunted insects from above. This was one of the most dramatic reshufflings in Earth's history. Predatory pressure shifted from giant arthropods to vertebrates, and the entire structure of who ate whom was rebuilt. What happens when the atmosphere quietly tilts the playing field in the present? In modern oceans, warming waters and changing chemistry have already begun to favor jellyfish over many fish in some regions. Jellyfish tolerate low oxygen and high temperature better than many gill-breathing fish, so blooms can grow where stressed fish populations shrink. In forests under heat and drought stress, bark beetles can erupt into massive outbreaks, killing trees that once resisted them. As climates warm, pests and diseases are moving poleward and uphill, entering regions where native species have little defense. These are classic trophic cascades. Remove or weaken key predators, or suddenly boost the survival of a prey species, and every link above and below can feel the impact. Landscapes can become overgrazed, coral reefs can shift to algal plains, and clear lakes can turn into green, murky waters filled with blooms. The atmosphere is a hidden driver behind many of these changes. Temperature, acidity, and gas composition shape which bodies can function, which shells can form, and which lungs or gills work best. The visible changes, more jellyfish, fewer corals, new insect plagues, are signs of deeper forces in the air and water. As the story continues, the question becomes clear. Which organisms will the next atmosphere favor, and which ancient winners will be pushed aside once again? For many millions of years, shifting atmospheres quietly selected winners and losers. In the late Carboniferous, that invisible filter produced one of the most alien landscapes Earth has ever seen. Imagine stepping out of a time machine and into a forest where the air itself feels heavy, damp, and strangely powerful. The first breath is thick and sweet, loaded with oxygen at close to 30 or even 35%. The lungs fill easily, almost too easily, and a faint, lightheaded sensation follows, like standing up too fast. The forest around is dim, not because it is night, but because towering club moss trees and giant horsetails knit together a dense canopy that blocks much of the sun. Their trunks rise like columns, straight and spindly, vanishing into a green ceiling far overhead. Sound reaches the ears in layers. A constant hum and buzz fills the air as dragonfly-like Meganeura patrols the open spaces between trunks, its wings nearly a meter across and beating with a deep, muscular thrum. From the leaf litter below comes the dry, rhythmic rustle of many legs. A massive millipede relative, Arthropleura, slides past like a living log, armored plates scraping softly against decaying plants. Every step risks catching on huge tangled roots or sinking into soft peat that will, millions of years later, become coal. The air smells of wet vegetation, fermenting fronds, and something sharper in the distance. A faint hint of smoke drifts through the trees, a reminder that in this high-oxygen environment, even a small spark can turn the dry upper canopy into a sudden inferno. Scientists have found charcoal in Carboniferous rocks, evidence showing that wildfires played an important role in shaping these swamps. Here, a fallen branch striking another stone might be enough to start a chain of flames racing through the forest. Clothing and gear would be at constant risk. Fabrics that resist burning in a modern atmosphere could catch and flare far more easily when surrounded by such oxygen-rich air. A campfire that seems manageable in a familiar environment might leap unexpectedly, its flames taller, hotter, and harder to control. Even metal tools heating in the sun or against rock could become dangerous ignition points. In this world, fire is not just a tool, it is a predator. Inside the body, the atmosphere works in quieter, more subtle ways. Higher oxygen might initially boost alertness and energy, but prolonged exposure could strain delicate tissues. Extra reactive oxygen increases oxidative stress, potentially damaging cells more quickly. Heart rate and breathing patterns might shift as the body struggles to maintain balance in conditions never encountered by human physiology. How long could a visitor remain before headaches, dizziness, or inflammation begin to appear? Every unsettling detail in this forest traces back to the air itself. Giant insects thrive because oxygen can diffuse through their tracheal tubes more effectively, feeding large bodies that would fail in thinner air. Dense swamps lock away plant matter, raising oxygen even higher and feeding more fires. Scientists have collected fossils of Meganeura wings, Arthropleura segments, and thick coal seams, all providing evidence showing that atmosphere and life were tightly linked here. This walk through the Carboniferous turns abstract gas percentages into lived experience. Buzzing giants overhead, unstable flames, and a body quietly pushed toward its limits. But this atmospheric experiment did not last forever. As conditions shifted and new vertebrate predators took to the skies, what happened to these oxygen-made giants? And what does that rise and fall suggest about the future atmosphere shaping life today? For many millions of years, forests filled with giant arthropods were not nightmares, but daily reality. Dragonfly relatives with wingspans wider than an eagle's, and millipede-like Arthropleura stretching longer than a human body, moved through the dense, humid air as easily as small insects move through a garden today. To modern eyes, this seems like a horror scene, yet in Earth's history, that smaller, mostly ignorable insect world is the real anomaly. This contrast creates a powerful emotional divide. The idea of a Meganeura gliding silently between tree-sized club mosses often triggers fear, while a small housefly barely earns a glance. But to the animals of the Carboniferous, the large forms were simply normal neighbors, filling roles that tiny flies and beetles fill in the present. The environment, with its oxygen-rich air and sprawling swamps, supported bodies that appear monstrous only from a human-centered perspective. From that perspective, a Carboniferous forest would be deeply uncomfortable. Wings would beat loudly overhead, armored millipedes would block narrow paths, and every fallen log could hide something large and jointed. Yet for amphibians, early reptiles, and these giant insects themselves, this was a stable, familiar system. The modern world, with trimmed fields, controlled fires, and chemical defenses against pests, is far more comfortable for humans, but in many places it is less structurally diverse than those tangled ancient wetlands. Scientists have gathered evidence showing that even as oxygen levels fell and giants disappeared, insects did not lose their dominance. They changed scale, not strategy. They remained one of the most successful groups on the planet, branching into butterflies, beetles, ants, and countless others. As pollinators, decomposers, and prey, smaller insects have played an important role in building the ecosystems that support birds, mammals, and flowering plants. The continuity is striking. A Meganeura hunting above a swamp and a modern dragonfly skimming a pond share the same basic plan. Strong wings, rapid flight, and sharp mouth parts in place of dinosaur-like teeth. The sizes differ, but the ecological script is familiar. Fossils of ancient insects and the living forms in fields and forests today together provide evidence that this strategy has worked across hundreds of millions of years and many atmospheric shifts. The very idea of giant also depends on the observer. To a small amphibian, a 2-foot dragonfly was a powerful aerial threat. To a modern human, a mosquito weighing less than a grain of rice can be far more dangerous. Malaria, dengue, and other diseases give that tiny insect an impact no ancient dragonfly could match. Danger is measured not only in size, but in what a species can do to bodies, populations, and entire societies. This shift from towering predators in the air to microscopic parasites in the bloodstream sets the stage for a deeper comparison. How does a world threatened by large oxygen-fueled hunters differ from a world shaped by invisible pathogens and changing climates? The story of giant insects and their small but powerful descendants offers important clues about the kinds of atmospheric and ecological dangers that may rise in the future. In that shifting landscape of dangers, it is tempting to ask a simple question. Among all these ancient arthropod giants, which were truly the most dangerous? For millions of years, different forms of invertebrate power ruled the air, the land, and the water. Some killed with speed and precision, while others survived through sheer size and armor, turning their bodies into moving fortresses. High in the Carboniferous sky, Meganeura stands as one of the most dangerous aerial arthropod predators in Earth's history. With a wingspan over 0.5 meters and strong, fast-beating wings, it hunted in an atmosphere rich in oxygen, where no vertebrate had yet taken to the air. Scientists have found fossils showing delicate wing veins and large compound eyes, evidence showing that this insect could track and intercept prey with great accuracy. In a world filled with smaller flying insects and no birds, Meganeura combined size, speed, and hunting efficiency to dominate the ancient air. On the forest floor, danger looked very different. Arthropleura, the giant millipede-like arthropod, was probably not a predator, yet it was one of the most imposing land invertebrates of all time. Growing more than 2 meters long, with many hard overlapping plates along its back, it formed a kind of invertebrate tank that moved slowly through dense vegetation. Its broad body and armor meant that few contemporary predators, if any, had the teeth or jaws to damage it. In this sense, its power came not from attack, but from near invulnerability in its environment. Beyond these two giants, other contenders show how arthropod danger has taken many forms. Many millions of years before Meganeura, giant sea scorpions, or eurypterids, patrolled shallow seas and river mouths. Some reached lengths of 2 meters, using strong spined limbs and grasping claws to seize fish and other prey. On land, large predatory arachnids, including early spiders and scorpion-like hunters, used venom and ambush tactics, hiding among roots and fallen logs. Even in the present, large centipedes with powerful venom and spiders with fast-acting toxins remind observers that size is not the only measure of threat. These different animals highlight different types of danger, much as dinosaur documentaries compare the bone-crushing bite of Tyrannosaurus with the coordinated attacks of pack hunters or the heavy armor of ankylosaurs. Meganeura represents lethal precision from above, striking quickly and leaving little chance for escape. Arthropleura represents ecosystem dominance through defense, its armor and bulk playing an important role in shaping how predators behaved on the forest floor. Eurypterids and large arachnids show direct predation with claws and venom, turning ancient coastlines and swamps into hazardous hunting grounds. Yet there is a striking pattern interrupt in this ranking. The most dangerous arthropods to humans today are not giants like Arthropleura or Meganeura, but some of the smallest insects on Earth. Mosquitoes and other tiny blood feeders act as vectors for malaria, dengue, and many other diseases, using the same air that once fueled giants to carry microscopic parasites instead. In terms of lives affected and ecosystems changed, these small insects are among one of the most dangerous animals of any kind, reminding observers that evolutionary success and threat do not always arrive with giant wings or armor-plated bodies. Sometimes, the deadliest forces hide in a nearly invisible bite. In every era, the atmosphere has acted like an invisible stage director, deciding which creatures gain power and which quietly fade away. Many millions of years ago, that director granted insects and other arthropods a brief rule as giants, then slowly rewrote the script and handed the leading roles to new forms of life. During the late Carboniferous and early Permian, oxygen levels rose far above those of the modern atmosphere. This enriched air turned simple breathing into a kind of superpower. It allowed dragonfly-like Meganeura to spread wings wider than an eagle's, and millipede-like Arthropleura to grow as long as a car, filling dark forests with powerful armored bodies. Scientists have found fossils with delicate wing veins and body segments preserved in detail, evidence showing that these were not rare monsters, but common animals in their environment. Yet the same air that lifted them up also held the seeds of their downfall. As vast swamps were buried and turned into coal, as climates shifted and new vertebrate predators evolved, oxygen levels began to fall. The tracheal breathing systems that once gave insects an edge became a limitation. Gigantic forms lost their advantage, and the world's largest arthropods shrank back into the undergrowth, while other giants, including early reptiles and later dinosaurs, rose to dominate land, sea, and sky. This history shows that the atmosphere is both generous and strict. It can grant extreme size, endurance, and strength, but it can also revoke those gifts when the balance of gases changes. Bodies, however strong, are always negotiating with the air around them. Even the most perfectly adapted design, from Meganeura's broad wings to Arthropleura's jointed armor, depended on a narrow set of conditions that could not last forever. That fragility is not ancient history alone. Many modern species are finely tuned to current levels of oxygen, temperature, and moisture. As those conditions shift, entire ways of life can vanish, just as the oxygen titans once disappeared. Scientists have gathered evidence showing that rapid atmospheric and climate changes are already pushing some animals and plants beyond their limits. The lesson written in fossil wings and segmented shells is that no organism, however successful, is guaranteed a permanent place. Human societies also live inside a narrow atmospheric window. The same mix of gases that supports lungs, crops, and even the corrosion of metals has played an important role in building cities, machines, and global trade. But the physics that once empowered giant insects still operates. If air composition drifts too far, what happens to breathing, to food production, to the materials that hold bridges and buildings together? In this sense, the rise and fall of ancient arthropod giants is not just a distant curiosity, it is a mirror. It reflects how temporary any dominance really is, whether carried on giant wings or walking on two legs. The air that made bugs the size of eagles also cleared space for dinosaurs and later for humans. So what new giants or new collapses might the changing atmosphere be preparing next? The air that lifted giant dragonflies and armored millipedes did more than create strange monsters. It reshaped entire worlds. For millions of years, super-oxygenated skies did not just allow insects to grow large. They dictated how big bodies could become, how strong wings could beat, and how deadly weapons like claws, stingers, and jaws might be. Atmosphere was not a background condition. It was one of the most powerful architects of life. In that sense, the age of Meganeura and Arthropleura is a case study in how deeply air controls biology. Thick, oxygen-rich atmospheres allowed arthropods with simple tracheal tubes to push past normal size limits. When oxygen fell and climates shifted, those same designs became liabilities. Entire ecosystems reorganized as giant insects vanished, vertebrate predators spread, and different hunters took over the skies. The rise and fall of those creatures shows that even small changes in gas percentages can tip the balance between dominance and extinction. Many millions of years ago, Carboniferous plants changed the air without understanding it. Vast swamp forests locked away carbon, built coal beds, and unintentionally pumped oxygen higher. Those forests, played an important role in the birth of giant arthropods, but they did not choose that path. In contrast, scientists have instruments, satellites, and models that track every fraction of a percent in modern air. There is evidence showing that changes in greenhouse gases, aerosols, and ozone are already altering temperature, storms, and oceans. For the first time, a species can see some of the consequences of altering the atmosphere before they fully arrive. By reading ancient air trapped in ice cores, minerals, and even tiny bubbles in fossils, scientists have also mapped past extremes. There were greenhouse worlds with no permanent ice caps, and ice ages when great sheets of frozen water reached far toward the equator. There were intervals with oxygen far above today's level, and others with lower oxygen and higher carbon dioxide. Each combination produced different winners and losers. Some lineages shrank, some developed more efficient lungs or circulation, and some disappeared entirely. Studying these patterns gives a rough map of possible futures. Exact species will differ, but the types of biological responses are already written in the rock. Seen this way, atmospheric science becomes a form of planetary self-knowledge. The more is learned about ancient air, the better the risks being taken with modern air can be judged. Choices about energy, land use, and conservation are not just technical debates. They are decisions about which environments will exist and which bodies will thrive in them. What kinds of forests, reefs, insects, and vertebrates will the next atmosphere favor? As the story turns toward its conclusion, another question emerges. When future scientists study the air locked inside rocks formed from this age, what kind of world will that invisible record reveal? And what creatures will be shaped by the atmosphere left behind? In deep time, every shift in the air has written a new cast list for life. When oxygen climbed during the Carboniferous, the result was not just taller trees, but dragonfly-like Meganeura, with wings wider than a human arm span, and millipede relatives, such as Arthropleura, stretching longer than a car. The atmosphere itself helped decide which bodies could exist, and which could never grow beyond a fragile shell. If oxygen or carbon dioxide levels drift again, the same invisible pressure will shape future giants and future disappearances. Higher oxygen could favor large, fast-burning metabolisms, perhaps encouraging powerful vertebrate hunters with deep chests and strong bones, or even larger arthropods if their tracheal systems can keep pace. Lower oxygen might reward compact, efficient animals with slower lives, while elevated carbon dioxide could push forests, reefs, and insects into new patterns that are difficult to imagine. Which familiar birds, mammals, or insects would quietly vanish if the air slipped just beyond their limits? And which unexpected survivors would rise in their place? There is a pattern interrupt hidden in that question. The Carboniferous world feels distant, yet the same chemistry is still at work. Scientists have evidence showing that modest changes in atmospheric gases have already shifted growing seasons, ocean chemistry, and the ranges of many species. Amphibians that depend on thin skin, insects with delicate breathing tubes, and coral reefs that build skeletons from dissolved minerals all respond directly to what the air contains. In this sense, the next Meganeura, or the next extinction, is not a fantasy. It is a possible outcome of the choices being made in the present atmosphere. Imagine a future scientist standing over a rock core, drilled from sediments laid down in this century. Tiny bubbles trapped inside would preserve a sample of this air, just as fossils preserve teeth and bones from dinosaurs that lived many millions of years ago. That researcher might reconstruct temperature curves, storm patterns, and extinction pulses. Then ask a simple question. Knowing how the atmosphere worked, what did that earlier civilization decide to do with it? That imagined question leads directly to personal reflection. Explaining this era to that future observer would mean describing not only factories, engines, and power plants, but also how information moved, how warnings were shared, and how public choices were made. Would that distant scientist see an age that treated the air as an unlimited dumping ground, or a turning point where understanding played an important role in changing direction. Individual curiosity becomes a quiet but significant force in that story. Following paleontology and climate research, supporting science education, and staying informed about how policies and technologies alter the air and climate systems all help anchor decisions in evidence rather than guesswork. Each new study of carboniferous swamps, early vertebrate lungs, or insect breathing tubes adds another piece to the long record of how atmospheres and ecosystems interact. Influence also appears at the community scale. Conversations with friends and family about deep time and atmosphere can shift how problems are framed, connecting daily choices to a history that stretches across hundreds of millions of years. Voting and advocacy that recognize humans as active participants in Earth's atmospheric story, not passive inhabitants, push institutions towards slower, more deliberate changes rather than sudden shocks. The outcome is not fixed. Meganeura and Arthropleura will not return, and the exact forests of that ancient age are gone. Yet the principle that air shapes life remains one of the most powerful forces on the planet. The legacy of this era can resemble a rapid, chaotic atmospheric jolt, marked by abrupt extinctions and collapsing habitats, or a controlled adjustment that leaves room for future ecosystems as rich, strange, and varied as the worlds recorded in stone. The next chapter in this atmospheric saga will be written in the same thin layer of gases that once allowed bugs to reach the size of eagles. The difference lies in how consciously that chapter is shaped. In the end, this entire story begins and ends with air. For millions of years, the carboniferous skies held oxygen-rich atmospheres that turned ordinary insects into powerful giants, then slowly thinned until those same giants could no longer survive. The thin, invisible layer of gases around the planet acted like a hidden engineer, shaping which bodies could exist and which would be crushed by their own biology. This episode has moved from dark, humid swamps filled with towering club moss trees to the shadow of Meganeura, a dragonfly-like hunter with wings wider than a human arm span. It has followed the armored length of Arthropleura, a millipede-like arthropod that could stretch longer than a person is tall. These were not small background animals. For a time, they were one of the most dominant forms of life on land, turning the forest floor and the air just above it into dangerous territory. Scientists have evidence showing that their size was not an accident of evolution, but a direct response to the strange atmosphere of that era. The tracheal tubes inside their bodies could only deliver enough oxygen because the air itself was packed with extra O2. When oxygen levels climbed toward 30 to 35%, the limits of diffusion shifted, and insect bodies could grow broader, wings could spread wider, and exoskeletons could become heavier without shutting down the internal flow of gas. As conditions changed, that advantage disappeared. Falling oxygen, shifting climates, and the rise of vertebrate predators with strong skeletons and efficient lungs all played an important role in ending the age of giant insects. The same forests that once produced thick coal deposits and pumped oxygen into the sky became stages for new hunters with jaws, teeth, and bones built for active pursuit. Over millions of years, the balance moved from tracheal systems to rib cages, from silent gliding insects to vertebrates that could chase, bite, and outcompete the old titans. The central image remains simple and unsettling. Earth once had air that made bugs the size of eagles. That single fact forces a new way of thinking about the link between invisible gases and visible life. If a small change in atmospheric chemistry can turn dragonflies into aerial monsters, what other body plans are waiting at the edges of possibility when the environment shifts again? In this series, creatures like Meganeura and Arthropleura are treated in the same way dangerous dinosaurs are examined, as case studies in power, adaptation, and extinction. Future episodes will turn to other monsters built under different rules, from predators that hunted in methane-rich seas to vertebrates that survived superheated climates. Which ancient creature or atmospheric age should be explored next? And what kind of predator might have ruled there? Somewhere in the rocks beneath modern cities and quiet forests, undiscovered fossils still record animals that lived under skies very different from today. Each new discovery adds evidence showing that life can stretch its limits in unexpected directions. By following those traces, this investigation does more than look back at monsters. It approaches the outer boundaries of what life on this planet can become, inviting every viewer to stay curious and continue the search.